All right, we are live. Mr. Gionis, how are you today?
I'm good, mate. Fantastic. Life is good. Happy to be
fantastic.
here.
Love to hear that. So we've got some people flying into the room here. Do let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. We're trying to collect this big community of photographers that are trying to want to learn from Jerry, and get to the next step with their photography. So yeah, drop a little message in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. We'll get started shortly. If anyone's like me, they'll probably be a few minutes late to the class today.
And that's not your actual accent, is it? Yeah, I think you just do it to sound more intelligent.
I wish I was that capable, but this is sadly my real accent. Yeah.
Very cool, mate.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I'm just going to bring up the slide deck so people know that they're in the right place, because if you get a lot of emails, lots of things going on online, but if you're on the goal to improving your portraiture, you are in the right place, because today you're going to learn Jerry's 5-step process to capturing and creating, most importantly, powerful portraits. So we've got some people here. We've got Colorado. We've got someone in Puyallup, Washington, UK, Cadiz, Ohio, Tracy, California, Isle of Anglesey in the UK. Lots of Brits here. I love this. Philadelphia, Williamsport. This is so exciting. I think one of the things I love most about doing these things, Jerry, is seeing how excited people are about their hobbies, their craft, their profession, whatever it is that they want to learn,
That's the thing, man. I think that we've all had a rough few years and we're sort of back in action now. Everyone's, really, really appreciates life and love and everything that we have to celebrate. And especially photography is such an incredible craft, and it's the most popular hobby in the world. I mean, think about it. We absorb and digest photographs all day, every day. And if you can create something special for someone, it's a good day, right?
I could not agree more. Wow, this is amazing. People, we've got someone from Greece joining in today. As a fellow Greek, Jerry, I'm sure you'll love that.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, Kent in the UK. That's actually where I'm from. This is fantastic. All right, guys. Well, we want to be very, very, very respectful of your time. So I think it's best if we just dive into this. So why are we here? Today, you are going to discover this process that Jerry has developed and uses time and time again to create imposing, powerful, inspiring, dramatic, and fantastically emotional portraits. And if you're like me and you've ever failed to do this, you've taken a photo of someone you love or you're interested in, and it just doesn't look very good, you're in the right place, and you need to know that it's not your fault. That's so important. Everyone, when they pick up a camera, everyone can be doing photography for 20 years and still fall into this place because you don't have the right techniques, you don't have a system that are going to help you achieve the results that you want. So, Jerry, in coming up with a system and coming up with a class today, what is it that you wanted to get across to this audience?
Yeah, look, it's crazy. I've been photographing for over 30 years, and after a while, I noticed I repeated the same thing over and over again. And when I started teaching over 20 years ago, there was a common denominator with every single time that I photographed, and it was a 5-step process. And I do it every single time, and it gives me a system to my spontaneity. And if I'm ever sort of freaking out or stressed or anything like that, I just go back to that system and follow it methodically, and I get solid results.
That's amazing. So that is something that I want, and I hope that if you're listening to this, that's also something that you want, something that works and can get you really, really amazing results. So guys, we're going to cover a lot. I highly recommend a notepad and a pen if you're a note kind of person, or you can screenshot stuff or take notes on your computer, whatever it is you want to absorb this information today. We're going to be going through so much in about an hour, and we will do a Q&A at the end of the class. So if you have questions, keep those for at the end, and you can drop those in the Q&A only tab, and I'll make sure I keep an eye on those. And also, because we're covering so much, Jerry has actually created a special PDF to download for those that do stick around to the end of today's class. So make sure you stay with us. All right, so if you don't know who Jerry is, let's just really quickly give you a recap or an introduction. Jerry is from Australia. He was, the son of a Greek parents, and ended up owning the largest photography studio in Australia. Over a 3-decade career, has become probably the most awarded photographer on planet Earth, the first ever Grandmaster WPPI, accomplished in every field from portrait, filmmaking, weddings, editorial things, commercial advertising. I mean, he is one of the kings of photography, and that is why Nikon made him a Nikon ambassador. And also, sorry, that's very important on there. Jerry was named by PDN as one of the top photography instructors in the world. So this isn't, when you learn from Jerry, you're not learning from a nobody, you're learning from someone who we've all been instructed to learn from, practically. So if you're listening to this and you're looking at this picture of Jerry, you might wonder, is this really applicable to me? So I think you'll hear from Jerry that it is, yeah.
Well, this was actually me when I think it was within the first few months of getting my first camera from my brother. And yeah, I was 15 in this photograph, and I was with my little tripod, my little bag, and I climbed up the mountain range, the Grampians, if you've ever been to Victoria, Australia, and fell in love with photography. And, you know, I did it as a hobby and started professionally at the age of 20. I'm turning 50 very soon. So life is good. I'm very, very thankful to be in this industry, and after 30 years, and I'm still doing my best work. You know, like last few months, even the last week, I feel like I've done the best work in my career, and I'm still excited and so joyful when I'm shooting. I love the process.
That's amazing. I absolutely adore that about you, Jerry. You're vivacious in your approach to photography and improving. Something I didn't mention also is there is actually a beautiful woman behind the man here, Melissa Gionis, who is going to be in the chat. So if you have questions that we're not answering, she'll be in there helping. So yeah, it's a team effort today. We really want to get you the most value in a short amount of time. So let's dive in. So what are we going to cover today? This 5-step process.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 5 steps to a great photograph, in my humble opinion. And I think that many of us, when we start, we usually get it wrong. And I say that not out of disrespect. I think it's just pure ignorance. We just don't know any better, you know. So we find a subject, whether it's a friend or it's a model, it's a client. We look for the best background. Like, we just look for that wall, that fountain, that tree. And you soon find that looking for light is the number one thing you should do. Now, no doubt there'll be a location that attracts you, no doubt. So number 2, as in this perspective, location might attract you, the background, but my suggestion is you go back and find the good light or create the good light. But I'm going to teach you a method that we talk about that is lighting. It's all about lighting, and I'm going to show you some nuances that perhaps you've never been shown before in a very simple way. And then number 2, we choose a complementary background. Then we don't demonize posing. We understand how to bring out the best in someone with how we pose them. Then, of course, we pick up our camera now and we learn the right lighting techniques, the lens choice, the cropping, composition. And then finally, it is evoking emotion. Is how do we add that spark, that finesse, that point of difference that really shows you who that person is rather than just what they look like. So 5 steps to a great photograph.
That's fantastic. All right, well, I'm going to turn this over to you, Jerry. I'll be here if you need anything. And remember, everybody, enjoy and stick around to the Q&A to grab that the free bonus that we're going to give you guys.
Thank you, guys. It's great to have you. I see all these comments in my peripheral vision. So many countries and so many states are tuning in right now. I do want to give you as much value as humanly possible, so we're going to jump right into it. So let's do this. So, you know, you have a subject in front of you, and you just start shooting. I think that we just have to slow down. Too many of us photograph too quickly. Now, you think that your subjects think that maybe it's a lack of confidence that you're going slow or methodical. It's actually quite the opposite. You need to actually understand what energy does and also who the person is. So, for example, if you've got someone who's high energy and then you're low energy, they're not going to relate to you. No different that when you're in a conversation, when you speak really fast, someone who speaks really slow are not going to relate to you. So we have to relate to our subjects and understand. Also, understanding your subject and specifically who they are is really, really important with portrait photography, because a portrait is so much more than what someone looks like. Now, how do you define a human being in front of your camera in a fraction of a second? Well, yes, it'll be a facet of who they are or their personality, but it could be a defining personality trait that we are looking for. And what is a portrait? And I said this under my breath only a few moments ago. It is not what just someone looks like. It is who they are to the person that the photograph is for, who they are to themselves. Maybe it is someone who wants to empower themselves and find a superhero in themselves so that when they have a bad day, they walk past their wall and they say, yes, I'm reminded of who I can be, or It doesn't even have to be so deep. It could just be, hey, I look gorgeous. I look handsome. Or that's me on a really good day. So portrait photography really could change the destiny of your life. Because I'll show you this today. I'll actually show you examples of when people look at their photographs, they start believing in themselves. They start to understand, well, wait a second, I will be able to see what others see. Like if you ask a mother, who's the most beautiful girl in the world, they're going to say their daughter. Well, okay, well, that's your job to say that. You're the mother. But how do we convince that very daughter, that young woman, that young lady, that she is stunning inside and out, and let's bring her confidence? And how do we do that through the lens of our camera, following those 5 steps? So you want to ask yourself, who is this person? What is meaningful to them? Because we can put little nuggets, the way we dress them, their hair, the background, props, anything in there that really gives us a symbol of who they are. And what story can we tell about them? And that's pretty obvious. You know, is there a story that we want to tell? And there's many stories that we have to tell. And of course, how do we flatter these people? How do we flatter the person in front of us? Because lighting can flatter. Lighting can make someone look terrible. We have to really understand those nuances, and don't underestimate what anyone will do for beauty. So we'll discuss that in a lot of detail. So here's the thing: you are the artist. You've got to take control, and that control comes with experience, repetition, and time, and confidence. And confidence will build the more you do it. So how do you tell the most powerful story? And I've said this before, and I'll just say it and repeat it again. The idea is to slow down. And you as the artist, as a photographer, you need to slow down and enjoy the process. Don't be belittling yourself. Don't say, I could have done better. Just put it all out there on the day. Do the best you can. But I'm telling you that why my photography is solid, it's not because I'm the best technician in the world. I think my superpower is my empathy. And I follow it with solid technique. And it works for me. It's a really, really solid process. Now, let's show you an example. So I'm going to break down those 5 steps, but I'm going to just give you an idea of where we're heading with this and show you an example. In fact, this young girl that I mentioned before, let me go to it right now. So this is Claire, beautiful young woman. This is actually a daughter of one of my workshop students that I taught many, many years ago. And at the workshop, the mother basically said to me, hey, Jerry, I'd love for you to photograph my daughter. She's a gorgeous redhead. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're just, a mother. Saying that your daughter shines bright, and that's your job to say that. That's totally fine. And certainly didn't take that away from her. I didn't see the photograph of her at that time, by the way. And not that it mattered, but, she was very proud of her gorgeous daughter. Several years later, she said, hey, remember me? Of course. I go, you were my workshop student. We spent 5 days together at the workshop. And I said, yeah, that beautiful redhead daughter. Can you show me a photo? And at this point, she's like 16 odd. And I saw a photograph of her, and she's got this gorgeous, fiery red hair and this beautiful, delicate face. And as soon as I saw her, I pictured her as a young Queen Elizabeth in the style of Kate Blanchett in the movie Elizabeth, if you've seen that or not. It is an exquisite movie. In fact, if you ever want to watch a movie where every scene has been lit to perfection, because every movie is really made to look like it's lit like naturally. Now, there's a ridiculous amount of lights. If you watch any movie on the screen, the lights that are, if you were to see behind the scenes of the lighting that goes into movies to make it look natural, is just ridiculous. But this movie, Elizabeth, is actually being sculpted, and every shot was made to make her look gorgeous and royal and beautiful. So I'm actually going to show you now, we're going to show a video of Queen Claire. And after all the testing was done, this was the very, very first shot that we did. And it's crazy that we got this expression. But again, I'll break down the 5 steps of this moment shortly. But let's now watch a video and see her in action. Let's do this.
You're like a doll. You are a doll. Flying in the shoes. Does it feel really like...
Yes.
I'm scared to move. My dad.
Good. Because I know we all like to have a laugh and everything like that. We're going to get the giggles out because we want to create a mood. So we have to just keep it, I want to keep it regal. Just keep it simple, keep it clean.
So let's just be really, really quiet. And even if you get bored, it actually might look good in the photograph, but just run with me here. We've got everything ready to rock. We're just going to test the light a little bit, and then we'll work on some expressions here. Okay, so now I want you to stand flat-footed, always flat-footed. Don't sort of put your hip one way or the other. Bring your elbows back a little bit, just your elbows. That's it, good. And just relax them down and down. Good. Just allow the hands to be a little bit off. Good, perfect. All right, guys, so we're shooting for real now. We'll keep it cool and quiet and get this done. It's going to be beautiful. It's awesome.
How's that work?
It's so good.
I love that shot, Jerry. It's amazing. Just the way that her natural emotion comes through and is so fitting in that moment.
Oh, there we go. Fantastic. Yeah, look, it's her reaction was so good, and people were asking me did she give somebody an evil look in the room? And what it was, the mother was actually looking at her, at her daughter, and as you can see her pearls were not perfectly symmetrical. And, you know, like any young teenage daughter, she looks at her mum like, what do you want? And then Melissa was about to jump in the shot and ruin it. Thankfully, she didn't. And I waited because of the strobe recycle time. I didn't want to click the camera because I sort of waited. I'm like, boom, I took the shot. And this was the first shot after my test shot. So I was thrilled with this moment as well. Now, let me discuss with you the 5 steps now that took us to this shot. So I'm giving you a prelude to breaking down the 5 steps, but I want to show you in this one, and then we'll methodically go through it. So what was the light? Well, in this case, I'm working in the studio, so I can control my own light. So what was it? Now, you may have seen in this particular video that there was a very, very big light source behind me. That was my fill light. That was a 7-foot octabox from Westcott. That was a ProPhoto B10 strobe. So I find the biggest light source that I can possibly find, and I put it behind me. It does not matter that I'm actually in front of it. It's not going to cause a shadow. The light envelops me and then tickles her, so to speak. So I'm after a little bit of detail in the fill light so that I get detail everywhere. Then I had a 5-foot octabox, which is the main light source, as you can see from camera left, illuminating her. I put a black flag or a black piece of card to deepen those shadows on the right-hand side, because don't forget, my fill light gave me the detail, but I wanted to darken it up. We call that negative fill. I just wanted to take away some detail on that right-hand side. And then I use a beauty dish in a way that you wouldn't normally use it, and that was for the hair light. So if you look very closely at the hair, you've got this gorgeous little tickle of light. And then I had a light behind her on my background. You can sort of see that very soft, beautiful vignette of the background, which is actually a painted canvas background. So lighting was created from scratch. So we used 4 lights, 4 strobes. Location, well, it's the canvas background. So I've got that beautiful complementary tone in the background. The pose, now traditionally when it comes to women, especially all the young ladies in like 15, 16, 17 plus age, I don't normally get women to stand flat-footed. I want to see curves. I want to see movement. Now, a queen, though, would not be too sexy, so to speak. She would be more regal and stand very, very flat. So she was flat-footed. So the pose was very simple. And then as far as my camera technique, I was shooting at 200 speed, f8 at 100 ISO. Traditionally, when I'm photographing in the studio, I use the same exposure, so my work has a similar look and feel. And then with the expression, in this particular case, you'll clearly see that that was a result of just the circumstantial of what happened in the room. Now, I'm going to show you now, if you look at, let me show you. Now, I'm going to show you more photographs from this particular shoot at the end of this webinar. And I'm going to show you what got her this reaction. So I'm going to show you more photographs from the shoot at the end of the webinar, and you are going to see what evoked this emotion. All right, hope you enjoyed that. It's one of my favorite shoots that I've ever done in my life, and I'm happy to share some more later on with you. Now let's go through this. Let's methodically go through these 5 steps. We've talked about light, location, pose, technique, emotion. Now, step number 1, how the light affects the story. I want you to understand that when you have a light source that you are, and you have someone in front of you, you have to picture 3 things. I want you to picture your subject on a lazy Susan. For those of you who don't know what a lazy Susan is, it's a turntable. Picture your subjects on a turntable and you can just spin them around. Now, you might think that's really obvious, like you can just walk around them. Well, you need to understand that your direction, your perspective might be the best one, but where they're standing in relationship to you should be moving. So picture everyone on a lazy Susan. I want you to picture you on a turntable that's like a circle, a perimeter circle that wraps around the subject, and your lighting do the same. So if the person can move, if you can move around them, and if the light can move around them, and you can change your lens and your cropping and your perspective and raise and heighten your position and so on, you have millions of combinations. So don't always go to that same shot that you always do. In this case, I'm going to show you a brief video shortly of how this shot was actually created. This was literally using an 8x8 foot diffuser in front of a garage door at my studio. So all I had to do was turn him until I get those little tickles of light on his body, and the more highlight shadow you see on a portrait, the deeper and more dramatic it'll be. So let's have a look at the video and then we'll discuss it a little bit afterwards.
Just put it in there. Turn your body a bit more that way. So what I'm doing here is I'm just giving a bit of a kick, but now you're going to turn your face and your body biased that way. So do that for me. Stop there. Now, do me a favor, just your hands just like that. Cross your arms for me. Good. Tilt the top of your head away from me. There you go. Chin forward like a turtle. Turn your face more to the right. Lower. That's awesome. Check that lighting out, guys. That's where it's at right there. Okay, breathe in, breathe out, and flex.
Oh my God.
Now you better be careful because it's a classic Tinder profile shot.
That's hilarious. I think it's so amazing, that thing of picture your subject on a lazy Susan, because you're moving. And also, I'm sure if you're looking at that photo, everyone would assume that's full studio lighting, right. Maybe a 2 or 3 light setup, but that's basically natural light. That's all that you're using.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a little bit of a spotlight behind him to give him separation from the background, which I don't always go for. I think technically in textbooks will tell you, yes, separate your subject from the background. But if you want a dramatic look, then, are you going to call Rembrandt wrong for putting a subject and blending them into the background because there was only one tall window on the side of the room? Of course not. So the idea here is that I had the light coming through. You saw where I was in relationship to the subject and where the light was in relationship to them as well. And then all I had to do was turn them until I start getting those shadows. Now, you notice the gap underneath his chin. That's important because we get separation underneath his chin. And then if you want, now he's got a great body, right? So if you want bigger biceps, like me, I've got small arms. I grab my fists, put underneath my biceps, and I press them up. Bang, I get bigger biceps. What else did I do? I asked him to breathe in, breathe out, flex at the end. And that's a great way to get abs. Otherwise, now, if you don't have abs, you're not going to get abs. But if you want to amplify the abs, that's the way to do it. And then we've got a very cool shot. All right, guys, let's move on with our process here and talking about lighting. So now this is the open garage door again. We've got full sunlight coming in. And what do? I'm getting her to lie down and turn her face into the light. I arch her back, chin up, and then we get this photograph from that very spot. Now, you might say, well, Jerry, how did I see detail everywhere before, and now all of a sudden it's pitch black? Well, I'm exposing for her. Now, what does that mean? I'm basically after detail on the brightest highlights on her face and her body. And I deliberately get that shadow cutting across behind her. I bring her chin up and then we take the shot. It ends up being quite a strong and powerful image. Now let's talk about, what does good light even mean? Because that's, although as simple as that question is, I'm going to define it for you. It basically means it's either flattering, it actually makes someone look good, handsome, pretty, whatever you want to try to do, and or it helps communicate the desired message from the artist to the viewer of the photograph. So now you might say, well, when would that be unflattering? Why would good light be unflattering? Well, if your job was to make that lighting look sinister, or you were doing a horror movie or whatever, then of course, that's where the anomaly happens. I'll give you an example. I paid homage to the movie Sin City. Some of you may have seen this project that I did several years ago. This lighting isn't pretty, but if you've watched the movies from Sin City based upon the graphic novels, this very film noir looking light set against the backdrop of rain and all that kind of stuff, it's important, right? It actually really, really works. Like, this is good light because it was an execution of my desired result. Now let's keep on going further. Crappy lighting. Now, I remember I was at a workshop and someone said to me, Jerry, I wish we had unattractive models so you can make us understand how to actually make them look attractive. I said, are you telling me that I can't make this woman look bad? Well, no, she's gorgeous. I'm like, let me show you how you make this woman look bad. So I put her in bad light. We took a photograph. Then I got this shot from her literally moments later with no Photoshop. Now, how did I do that? Well, we were just walking around the street, and there was a soft diffuse piece of glass in the environment, and I got a light to lie down. I took a shot of her individually and then with her boyfriend, now husband, and we got this gorgeous light in the environment. So we have to understand that good light is either flattering and or it helps convey the message that you are trying to say about the person to the viewer of the photograph. Now, let's discuss a couple of sort of fundamental things. Now, if you look at the shot on the left of a man and then on the shot on the right of a woman, traditionally, and I'm not saying we can't make women look masculine and men, we shouldn't make them look feminine. It depends on what you're trying to say. We have to respect same-sex couples. We have to respect gender identity, all those different things. In this case, I want him to look masculine, her to look feminine. And what do? I turn his body towards the light source and his face stays the same as on the right-hand side. Do you notice how I've turned her body on the right-hand side? I've turned her body away from the light and her face back in. Really, the faces are basically in the same position. The bodies have changed. So when you go to a window, if you're photographing a female to look feminine, turn her body away from the light source until the shadow's on her cleavage in the middle of a dress, if she's wearing a dress. Turn her face back in until we're shooting on the shadow side. Now we have a great result. With the guy, here's a window, turn his body towards the window. Now, these aren't rules or absolutes. They're common denominators. After 30 years of shooting, I believe that this would work most of the time based upon these results. Now, let me break it down. I'm going to show you one subject, and I'm going to show you many different lighting situations, and also give you an analogy and a metaphor to help you understand light. Let's do this. Now, you have to understand, well, let me go back a step. If you want to understand lighting, liken it to water. Now, I've said this analogy many times. If you've never heard it before, I'm going to make you understand any light. You can go to any store, camera store online, or walk into a camera store and see a modifier, and your mind will be blown like, I don't know what all these things do. Liken the light source to water and the modifier to water, and you will understand it perfectly. So, for example, if you have the sunlight, the sun, what is that to water? Like if you, an analogy, that is a high pressure hose. Now, the sun is massive. It is massive. But if you were to look at it with your own two eyes, it's like this small. And it has got ridiculous pressure. So, for example, think of it like a high pressure hose very far away and really small. Therefore, when you see the lighting and the contrast ratio on a person, it is very contrasty. It is strong light, strong deep shadow. If that was water on a skin, it would feel very, very hard on your skin. And where it didn't hit, you wouldn't really feel it because it's not wrapping around you. Does that make sense? So really, really important. Okay. Actually, just a quick question here. In a previous photo of the couple, what did you say to the couple to get them to do that? In terms of lying down on the ground, I think it was. here's the thing. If you tentatively ask a couple to lie down on the ground and they say, I'm going to get dirty or whatever, and if you say it tentatively, they might not do it. I might say, guys, I've got an incredible idea for a photograph. I want you to lie down on the ground, bring your chin up. We've got gorgeous light there. It's going to look amazing on you. Turn your face, chin up, put your faces together, and we're going to get an incredible photograph. Boom, we've got a great shot. Never make excuses. And if they freak out about lying on the ground, get your reflector, unravel it, put it on the ground, isolate it. No one knows a thing. All right, let's go back to likening light to water. So as I walk through these examples, I'm going to liken the light source to water to make you understand how we achieve this result. So we can understand that first step of the 5-step process. Now you can clearly see there's a light behind him. That's what we call, there's many people call it an edge light. We call it a hair light. We call it a separator, whatever you want to call it. Basically, there's a softbox, a strip softbox behind him, lighting his hair, as you can clearly see on the photograph. Like you can clearly see the top of his hair, beautiful little light separating him from the background, and then that little rim, that little edge right on his arm. Then we have a fill light, which is behind me. It's usually the largest light that I can find. And if you don't have a large light source, simply grab your spare bulb, even a speed light, and then bounce it against your white wall behind you. Now you have a big light source. It's no different than if you had a little speed light, a little hose, you're only wetting, so to speak, this area. But if you were ricocheting it off the wall, it would spray everywhere. Well, now you have a bigger light source. So in this case, we get a pretty cool shot. Now let me go further. Where's the water in this shot? Well, it's underneath him. Now you can clearly see that his body's contorted. He's actually an athlete. He actually performed here in a Cirque du Soleil. He's been in many different shows. So he's contorted his body and he almost looked evil. I'm like, how do we make someone look more evil? Have you ever seen the Blair Witch Project? If you know that movie, it means you're probably old. And if you don't know it, it means you're probably young. It was a horror movie where it was popularized to make you feel like it was a real movie, and there was a torch or a flashlight underneath the face, and it looked very sinister. I wanted him to look sinister. So the flash, or the water in this case, as a metaphor, is spraying up. Where the water hits his body or face, that's, again, or the light, that's where he gets wet. Where it doesn't, that's where the shadow appears.
I found this on the web.
Oh, Siri just started talking to me there. All right, let's move on. Okay, this one. Now, it looks like he's been cut out, and I've placed him. It's like a composite here. Well, this is actually flash. So what I've done here is I've underexposed my environment just a hair, and then I've got just one light source, a strobe, with a very small softbox, and then I overpowered the sun. I've got it from the side. So what I'm basically doing is I'm wetting him, so to speak, more than the environment. That is one strobe, one softbox, and we got that result. Now, this was a class that I was doing at an annual convention here. You can clearly see that little spotlight is illuminating him. Think of that as a shower head. It's a small shower head. It's right above him. And if I want his face to get wet, tilt his face, chin up, and now we've got that shot. So likening light to water, for example, most of us, when we want to get into the shower, we turn the shower on, wait till it gets warm, we disrobe, we put our hand in, make sure the water is warm before we walk in. The phenomena that happens is, as you walk in, the offcuts of that water, although it's warm, it actually feels cold in our body. Now, what am I trying to say when I say this? Which means that if you have a big shower head that's soft and luxurious, that's likening it to a big softbox. But the fringes of that is cold, which means that if we get window light and we have someone on the fringe of it, we can actually make that water that's soft feel hard and give that impression that we're using a smaller light source because we're using it to the edge. Let's continue our metaphor here. This one here, we've got light, water hitting the background, and then we've got a pretty small light source hitting his face. And we've got a really cool shot. So we've exposed for the ambience. The ambience is the existing light around us. We get the exposure for the background shadows diagonal on those strong verticals, gives us a very strong masculine look. And then, we pop the color a little bit and get a very dark and moody image in an environment that's not really dark and moody. This is obviously a little sliver of light. Think of this as we're shielding the water until we get a sliver of water on his face. It's a little bit damp everywhere, hence you can see detail everywhere, but that main light, that water, is actually hitting him across half his face. Okay, this one, how did I get such a soft image where moments ago it was full sunlight? Well, this is the sun ricocheting off a building and I'm on the side and the corner of it. Does that make sense? So think of it this way. To his left, there is a building right in front of him. Behind him is the sun. The sun hits the back of him, hence the light. We've got a little bit of water hitting him. The water ricochets off the building back on his face, but because it's ricocheting, it's not as hard as of a light source or water, and it's softening his face. And then we've made one light source, two light sources. All right, let's keep on moving forward here. We've got a lot to cover. This one again, I'm isolating him in these deep shadows. His chin is up. We get a really cool shot of him. Now this one, what am I doing here? This is a bad shot. Yes, it is. This is the sunlight hitting the back of a building and he is in open shade. The light hitting his chest is reflecting back on him. Our analogy to water, the water is actually hitting not him. It's ricocheting off the wall and then back on his chest and the fringes of his body. But then I expose for him correctly. Well, now, as in I darken the exposure, now I'm seeing a bit more of a result of what I'm looking for. Then I lazy Susan him. I turn his body like a turntable, get him to breathe in, breathe out, flex. I've got that really beautiful little edge light on his face. I've got the light ricocheting off the wall, tickling the back of his body and the front of his body. And yes, did I have self-esteem issues after this photograph? Absolutely, because living in Vegas, I get access to incredible performers. And it's quite tough to do when you're approaching 50 and got a little bit of a tummy, you know, on a bad day. But all good. I'm thankful for my career. All good. All right, let's move on. Same guy, very different look. So because we're talking about portrait photography. So we celebrated different, like his body, we have his face, we went dark and moody, whatever. Here we're trying to make him look like an African king or a warrior. And what was this? This was just light coming through my garage door. I actually turned his body towards the light source and got that brow pressure right there between his eyes, and boom, we got the shot. Of course, we have the African garb, the headpiece, and so on, and it looked really, really cool. This was actually with a fellow performer. The lighting was coming from the side. So if you have to photograph somebody from the front, if you have the light coming from the side, you will get the shadows and the texture, depth, dimension, and form where your angle may not be doing that. I liken bodies and faces to architecture or landscape. You will not find a good landscape photographer photograph with the sun behind them illuminating the whole area. They're actually going to photograph a mountain or a range or whatever it may be with light coming from the side, which gives us that texture, depth, dimension, and form. And again, if you liken who you photograph to architecture, you'll be able to understand a little bit better. Now, this following gentleman, I used a couple of light sources, but I did this in literally in a couple of minutes. You have one light source behind him, one in front of him. They were continuous light sources. So I'm shooting him on the shadow side. I have that little edge light there as well. Then I'm actually putting the light up a little bit above him. This is Rembrandt lighting. We've got one eye or both eyes are in shadow, and we see a triangular piece of light, and that's how we get that. Now, this one, I've got a light behind him tickling his hair, as you can see, and I've split lit him. I've lit lighting on one side of the face. I'm shooting him on the shadow side of the face, which is often referred to as the narrow side or the short side. Some noses and bridges of noses, sometimes you can get the catch light in the eye without having too much light in the face. So his face allowed us to do that. We got him to give us a bit of a hint of a squint, that little bit of mystery, that tension that adds intrigue into the eyes. Then this one is a profile shot. You've got a light hitting behind him, a light from the front, gives us that really cool edge, not dissimilar to the shot that we saw of that gentleman with all the tattoos on his body as well. So that gives you a very clear example on how we can use light to describe someone. On the bottom left, it's a bit more approachable. Then you've got the top one, a bit more moody. You've got the third one, mysterious. And then you've got that profile shot that just looks badass for him. This gentleman, now this is a test shot. So I just had a 5-foot octobox in front of him. I wanted to soften parts of him, and I ended up doing this shot. he's a strong alpha male. I wanted a strength, but a bit of vulnerability in there as well. But also wanted to complement him. I wanted to sharpen his face with shadow. I wanted to bring out his tattoo and have it frame his body. Well, how did I do that? Did I do it in Photoshop? No, I didn't. I just took light away, or I took water away. So wherever I want the light to hit him or the water to hit him, great, I allow it to be there. If I want to hide that water or hide that light from him, I simply, in this case, I've got a couple of reflectors, literally just right there, taking away that light. So we call it negative fill. It depends on what you want to call it. It's a gobo. You've obviously, if you've heard of a gobo, it's what goes in between the subject and the light, and it cuts away that light. All right, so let's move on. How do we do this in a simpler way? Okay, that just shows us a few examples all there in one. Really cool little dude here. Michael is a performer here in Las Vegas. There's a continuous light behind him. I deliberately want him to actually bring his hands underneath his chest. He was very proud of his young, sort of muscly body, and I sort of wanted to bring his shoulders forward, but I felt like I had too much light on his chest. So what did I do? I just blocked away some light. Now, many of you in post-production might say, I could have done that in post-production. I'm like, well, I can do it in camera. So all I did was cover up the light. That's all I did. Let me just go back there. All I did was cover up the light. And what you're seeing now is straight out of camera. No Photoshop done to these images. All right, let me move on. Similar example. This next photograph is of Amber. Really, really cool photographer I met recently. We had some fun with her. And she's got a sort of Peter Pan vibe, don't you think? Really, really delicate face, love her freckles. And what I want to do, I wanted to cut away some light. So how did I do that? Well, all I did was put a black flag on a C-stand, and I cut away light. And we got this beautiful shot of her. Then I wanted to photograph her with her wife. And I'm like, how do we do this? They're very, very different in their style and their personal style and sensibility. And I'm like, well, hey, how about we go for this sort of yin and yang vibe? So what I did is I had this 7-foot octabox right behind. That was my background. I split that with a big V flat. So that little piece of that black there in front. Then I had a 5-foot octabox in front. Now let me break it down. I first just took a shot to test out that light behind, but I don't want detail in that diffuser. I want pure white. So I took that shot, boom, got that. Then I took the shot with a 5-foot octabox, and we get this beautiful wraparound light. And of course, we have her contrasted, Amber with her black suit against the white, and we have Scotty, who's basically got the white suit jacket against the actual black background, which I absolutely love. And it just gives us a really cool vibe. To this day, I love playing still. Now, this technique, I used it on a portrait session just recently. The more you play, the more feather in the caps that you have. And if you try something a little bit different and you fail, well, okay, you know not how to do it. Or you try it again and you succeed. And then when you have that system and approach again, you know how to do it now. It's in the can. It's in your brain. It'll never be a problem. All right, let's keep on going. So here I've got him broadly lit. I'm shooting him on the light side of his face. Then what I do is I use that same technique. I block out light from his face. And then I've got one light behind him. So you can clearly see the development of those 3 shots and actually how it really worked. Wayne asked a question, how would a beginner achieve these results without an assistant? So Wayne, I've got to tell you, most of my career was on my own. And what I did was I used reflector holders, I used light stands, and I used the environment. I mean, you can open up your garage door, assuming you have an apartment or a house or anything that you have. Open up a garage door. If let's say your budget doesn't allow for these backgrounds or diffusers, put a white sheet. There's a diffuser. If you don't have a black background, buy a black sheet. Go to Home Depot, get a black piece of material. Like, this is all things that we can use sort of very, very quickly, very, very, very affordably. The idea is you just got to practice with what you have. And as your time, as you can devote more time to this, as you can devote more patience with this and all that kind of stuff, you'll just find that you'll develop and you'll grow. I always say that repetition practice will always be your best teacher.
Yeah.
Hey, mate.
Just wanted to jump in on that because I was looking at those and I wanted to make sure one thing was very clear. None of these photos have been photoshopped, right? They're all out of the camera, straight out of the camera, or at least 90% of them.
No. So when, pardon me. So a lot of these have been Photoshopped. Some of these
Okay.
haven't been, but I bring attention to them. But my Photoshop is very minimalistic. So I do bring the behind the scenes one. There's no retouching, and if they're not retouched, I'll bring attention to them. But my retouching is very simple. I don't do too much. I do an invisible post production usually.
Because what I wanted to sort of point out is that similar to Wayne, he's looking at the behind the scenes, and there's all this gear and assistance and stuff. What you're getting into today is the purpose of your process and slowing down. And even if you don't have any gear, you don't have an assistant, simply the rotation of your subject can change everything. Simply putting up one of your bed sheets is going to diffuse the light and give you a different light source, and then you can rotate them or whatever it is. The barrier to entry to actually applying this is nothing. It's just having the moment and the confidence in yourself through doing it over and over again to take that time and really develop that shot, create that image. So I don't want you, if you're watching this, to think, well, I can't do this. I don't have assistants and 10 grand's worth of equipment. You can. And also, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, maybe I should get a light. Now that you've sort of broken the thing about thinking of it like water falling through, because I look at those things and it's going to be confusing. I don't know how the camera settings are going to work and all that stuff. But thinking of it as a source of water flowing over the body sort of breaks it down into, actually, it's quite a simple device. Sure, there's ways to use it in an extremely complicated way, but as a constant light source, very simple. So thanks for that.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you, mate. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
So Jen asked to show this particular setup one more time. For those of you wondering, like, if I don't have a softbox, if I don't have this environment, what do I do to achieve it? Go to the corner of your house. I guarantee you've got two windows that look exactly like this, and you've got a deep, dark corner. If you place someone on the edge of that particular window, you're going to have a little catch light. So right now, for example, this light hitting me here right now is a window. The light, in fact, I didn't even put it on. One second. Let me put this on. See, I've just added a continuous light source. It gives me the exact same result. Window, continuous. Go have some fun, go play. In fact, many people who come to my workshops, they expect me to get all the models dressed into the nines, go to the best location. And you know what I normally do? Sometimes I don't even go out of the car park. I walk around the seminar room, and it is a car park, and I show how to get great shots with very minimal location and something that's very difficult. I actually love the MacGyver approach, is making something out of nothing, which I find, I guess, more challenging, but more rewarding, because you are creating something that didn't exist rather than the easiest subjects in the world, and you still have to bring out the best in them, of course. Now, here, what do we see? We've got the same girl with three different lighting situations. I will often say, as I said earlier in today's presentation, that we need to turn the female form traditionally, and most of the time, away from the light and her face back in. So if you look at the shot with the girl in the red dress there, the same girl, I turn her body until we see a shadow on the cleavage, middle of a dress, and then I turn her face back into the light. Now, in the middle shot, that's full sun. The sun's coming from directly above, so you can see the shadows underneath her bust and so on. Turn her face chin up, and the third photograph is the sun coming through a diffuser. So you see how lighting for a portrait, it depends on what you're trying to say. The left-hand shot, you would say that's more of a sexy approach. The middle one, high fashion. The third one, it's more of a softer, prettier vibe. It depends on what you're trying to say. You've just got to work out what you are trying to say and then execute it through the lens of your camera. All right, we've discussed a lot about light. That's a really important part of our process today. I can't save the world with lighting in one conversation, but hopefully I've given you a very good perspective. Now we're going to specifically talk about location. How do you choose the right background, the location? How do you make it complement it? Well, first of all, you have to slow down. Look at your environment. Don't always put your subject against the background, but often also you may be dictated by your environment where you have to put them in a chaotic background. But how do you handle that? Well, there is always a way. Now, the couple of shots that you've seen here is of Ashley Amber, a country singer. She's incredible. We filmed her music videos, and this was actually in a recording studio. Now, how do you find the harmony in the chaos? All you have to do is find one negative space, one little piece of an environment. And here I'm actually photographing the reflection of the glass in her recording booth. And I simply said, hey, I want you to turn your face, turn your profile. Obviously, I mean, her frohawk is just so cool. And it's very distinctly her. Your profile's very delicate. She's just amazing. And we found the harmony and the chaos. This next shot was of her band. If you know the ice light, a cylindrical light source, it looks like a lightsaber, or if you've seen many knockoffs, that was my invention. Here, I've used these lights, made them part of the environment, and I'm deliberately putting this chaotic background, and you get rewarded as you continue to look around the actual image. You get rewarded by seeing all the band members, and it works really well. Now, don't forget too, you can create your own background. It doesn't have to be existing. You can create elements and have some fun. So in this shot, you're seeing it behind the shot. This is basically my backyard. We've got Mariah here lying down. I wanted the prime colors. Now, prime colors are red, green, blue, but prime colors in what most people think of them as is blue, red, and yellow. So I wanted a bit of green in there as well. So I'm like, well, how do we do this? So we jumped on Amazon. We searched for all these different items, and then we ended up doing this shot. I ended up flipping the image. I got some watermelon. We got this bowl from Amazon. We got Maduri. We got a piece of watermelon. What did we do? We turned her body away from the light, turned the face back in. We got a great shot. Background, it doesn't even have to be amazing. It could just be simple. Your subject matter could be so strong and so powerful. This dude, so intense, just really cool, beautiful skin tone, and I wanted it dark and moody. And after all, we are talking about portrait photography. So if the environment is not telling you something about that person, it's probably taking away. Now, only moments afterwards, I saw this little sliver of light coming through the building there, and then I literally got him to just step into that little piece of water. Remember, we said lighting is like water. So right now we've got the sunlight, a high pressure hose streaming through these windows. Where those shadows are is where the water is not actually hitting. But then I'm like, well, let me just put his head just tickling the shower head. And then we get this very strong, dynamic, very masculine, cool portrait of him, which I absolutely love. Then you've got deliberate chaos. This is a homage for those of you who know Herb Ritts, H-E-R-B, Ritts, R-I-T-T-S. Unfortunately, he's passed away many, many years ago. My hero growing up, he did this very famous shot of this guy holding tires. And I finally paid homage to my hero. There's harmony and repetition. You'll see the two hubcaps on the left. Now you see his two tires. Then you've got the two lights behind him. You've got the two tires. You've got a built-in, like this was all existing. I did not place any artificial light in this shot. The main light hitting him was the open garage door on the side. The light hitting him from either side, you can clearly see those windows behind him giving the edge light. And the fill light was actually another open garage door on the left. It was in my environment. As you practice, as you learn, you will find and how to recognize a studio environment in your local area. By the way, pardon me, that is the homage. So that is the original photograph of my hero Herb Ritts, not of him, a shot that he took on the left-hand side. And it took me like 30 odd years to pay homage to him with this particular photograph that, how do I say, made me look at the male form. I'm heterosexual, but made me look at the male form as beautiful. And hence, finally getting that shot that I wanted to pay respect to him. And these were a couple of other shots that I took of Blake here, the model, for a really, really cool project that we did as well. This was, if you ever come to Vegas, go to a place called Nelson's Landing. They have these planes that are just crashed in the background and being very timely. Of course, Top Gun Maverick took the world by storm last year, and we took these really cool shots of Blake. Almost looked like he survived the plane crash and now he's looking out for something. Here we have a very, very cool shot of him. Now Blake is a cowboy, and this light was basically the sun hitting the building, the barn, or the barn if you're American, and it hit back on him. Then we sprayed it smoke. I think it was called atmosphere aerosol. So we really get that beautiful atmosphere, and then bang, we've got a really cool shot. So sometimes as well, guys, you don't have to have any background. It could be totally nondescript. This is just a close-up version of the shot that we took. And you can sort of see how we've got the light reflecting off that building, hitting him. That's the main light source. And then you've got the edge light, which we've created an edge light, but a light hitting the other side of the bun, hitting his face. No different than that hose having a direction, bouncing and ricocheting off that wall, hitting his face, and then it tickles the other side of him, which is how we get that result. This one here was using a strobe on one side, and then a strobe bounced against a V-flat on the other. And now how did I capture that hair? It was just dropped by my assistant. She just dropped it, boom, we got the shot, and we got that beautiful luxury of light on her face, and her body just looks completely beautiful. Sometimes for your background, don't forget of our 5-step process, we're talking about number 2. Sometimes for the background, you might add elements. Like in this case, I'm obsessed with vintage backdrops. So whether it's a canvas background, whether it's a ladder, whether it's old Hollywood lights, but just as beautiful, you can isolate that beauty, have a beautiful expression here of Sophia, and we get a gorgeous shot. Those pearls I have in my studio, that little headband I have. So I have an abundance of wardrobe that I can just jump in anytime and have some fun.
I just wanted to jump in and ask you one thing, Jerry, because for the sort of more beginner part of your audience, myself included, how long does all this purposeful action take? You know, like we look at our subject, we know what story we want to tell, we understand them, we see the elements, the thing we want to sort of bring out, then we figure out how to light them, then we know how to fit them into the background. How long, like how do you do that quickly enough when you're also dealing with a person in front of the camera that may or may not want to be shooting for that long?
It's a great question. Half the battle, guys, is that you've got to build trust. So when you're working with a person, you're working with a human being. If you've got your head buried into the camera, you're not connecting with them at all. So you have to build trust. And how do you do that? Empathy. Let me ask you questions about who you are. Like all of these questions would have been asked long before they're in front of my camera. Like if I'm photographing a couple, who are you individually? Who are you to each other? If it's a romantic portrait, tell me 3 things you love about your partner. Rather than just say, where did you meet, or how did you propose, or whatever, I might say, tell me the moment that you saw each other and you knew you wanted to spend the rest of your life with each other. Now it evokes such a stronger emotion, and then you're connected in such a deeper way. So that conversation, whether it's a paid client, whether it's a portrait I decide to commission for myself, it could be a half an hour conversation on the phone. Sometimes you don't get that opportunity. Either way, when they're in front of my camera, if they're getting hair and makeup, I'll be, connecting with them then. If it's a guy, I might be shorter and sharper. If it's a woman, I might be softer and more delicate, or whoever they are. And then I stare at them. It's funny. If anyone's seen me shoot, I stare at the person and I say, I've got to stare at you for like 10, 30 seconds. Then I look at your face. What I'm diagnosing now is, how am I going to light you in a flattering way? What am I trying to say? And then it's like playing the slot machine. I'm putting the idea in the slot machine, and now there's thousands of ideas. One of my favorite sayings is that creatives aren't short of ideas. The problem is committing to one. And which facet of your personality or your trait or who you are do I want to amplify and tell now? Because you can show a photograph of an athlete in full flight. You can show them celebrating, you can show them exhausted at the end of the finish line, or you can show them as a parent or a partner. You can't show all that in one photograph, maybe with a composite perhaps, but you got to work out which one's more important, and more importantly, what is most meaningful to the person that you're photographing. Okay,
so it all comes down to trust, empathy, communication, basically. Once you've got that in, they'll let you take as long as you need to relax and create the better shot. Okay, cool.
Set expectations and have fun. Don't forget to have joy. Like that's the benefit, right?
Yeah.
All right. Love the special comments from the Englishman. I love that. He makes everything just sound so cool. All right, posing. Many of us fall short when it comes to posing. You might even say, I'm a photojournalist, which you can say, and I have no stigma attached to that either. But there will be a time where you have to pose someone, you have to direct them. And don't even call it pose if you don't want to, but you're going to have to direct them in a way that looks flattering, in a way that is purposeful. So you have to understand that. Now, how do we do it? Where do we begin? Well, again, it's purposeful and flattering. We have to pose with purpose. What are we trying to say? And how do we flatter the person in front of us? Now, this is a bit of a step-by-step guide to posing a woman full. It's supposed to be full length. So I believe Jack This was your fault. I'm going to totally blame you. This was you putting the deck in and totally, ruining that word at the end. So please,
I apologize.
This is not meant to be the fault. I totally threw you under the bus there, mate. I'm sorry. All good. All right. What do I do for posing a woman full length? This is not every time, but most of the time. If you look at the shot on the left-hand side, she's standing very flat-footed, shoulder length apart. We see no shape. What's beautiful about a woman? Curves. We turn her body a little bit. We're starting to see some curves. What do we do with her body weight? We start by pointing the toe towards the camera, shifting the heel back in, then bending the knee that's closest to the camera and making sure that the weight is on the other part of the body. Let's keep on going. Then what do? Make sure the weight's on the back part. Now, with the hands, we can do a multitude of things with the hands. But where do we start? Where do we begin? Well, one particular idea here is that we put the hands on the body, slide the hands up. We want to make sure that we expose the bust on the other side, as in the side that's furthest away from the camera. If you look at the fourth photograph, the chin is to the outer shoulder and her eyes are back into the camera. That works. And watch what happens in that right shot. When she puts the weight on the front leg, it may not be as flattering. Now, if you want more junk in the trunk, let's say, hashtag more a big curvier butt, put the weight on the back leg, go for it. But it depends on what you're trying to say. Let's go to the fuller image for you to understand it further. By the way, if you wait till the end of this webinar, you guys will be getting a free 20-page ebook based upon some fundamentals of posing, and these examples are included in that ebook, just so you know. So let's break this image down. You've got a gap between the right arm, the camera left arm, and her body. You've got the knee bent over her leg. That gives us shape, because the more peaks and valleys we see, the more harmony and repetition. And if we see peaks and valleys, then the bust looks fuller, the waist looks smaller, and we see those beautiful curves. And then that hand that's wrapping around the left, well, that's one way to do it. There's many ways to do it. We can put it on a tress. We can get rid of it if we feel like it looks a little bit alien-like. What we don't want to do is bring the arm around too much that it ruins and envelops the other arm, and it causes a problem. Let me go in more detail here with a recent shoot that I did of Mariah. Now, let's talk about light, how it relates to posing, because in fact we are talking about this step number 3, posing. Now, she's a gorgeous woman, absolutely, the beautiful background, life is good, but she's turning her body towards the light source. She still looks great, but she's blending into the background a little bit. She looks broader. I'm not saying broad, but broader. Now, if she turns her body straight, she's actually, because the light is coming from the right side, the camera right, she's actually now starting to turn her body away from the light source. What's happening? You get a shadow on the cleavage. You get a shadow starting to form on the left-hand side. Watch what happens now when we turn her again. Doesn't she look slimmer? She doesn't need to look slimmer, but she does look slimmer, and we're getting more shadows, but she's still flat-footed. Now, we bring the shoulders back. That's important because we get little pinches of skin that happen in the armpit area. Watch what happens when she shifts her weight towards the camera. Her hips look bigger. Watch what happens when we actually shift the weight on the back leg. It looks a lot better. And then in this case, she's actually putting her arm off her body. She's just putting her hands on her hips. Great little tip here, pro tip. The web of the hand should traditionally meet the thinnest part of the waist. That is always going to be a good way of photographing hands on hips. And this one was basically, she just changed dresses, and we wanted to make her look like a Greek god, a goddess. In this case, she's sitting down, we're rolling her hips around, she's turning her face back into the light source. So we're showing you how this relates to a woman sitting down as well. Let's go through this again. What about the male form? Now, and how it relates to the light source and the camera angle. In this case now, you see Sean here turn his body towards the light source, and his face is with him. Watch what happens when he turns his shoulders away and has his chin to his outer shoulder and looks back at the camera. He looks feminine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. If you had someone who's all, a guy who you wanted to soften a little bit, shoot him this way. Shoot him this way. If you wanted to, it depends on what you're trying to say. That's the whole thing about portrait photography. It is not just what someone looks like. It is what you are trying to say. Okay, let's have a look here. The shot on the left-hand side here. So now, what is he doing? He's basically just standing flat-footed. He's got his hand in front of his crotch. What that basically means for body language means I feel very uncomfortable because he's hiding the most sensitive part of his body. The shot in the middle is what I like to do. I put all the weight on the back leg. I separate his arms so I can see the silhouette of his body. There's little triangular pieces of light between his arm and his body, and I hang his body forward. That shot on the right-hand side, it's sort of covered by my photograph. I apologize for that, but it's one of my favorite poses to do for a guy. What I can do for a guy, put all his weight. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Jack just magically made it appear. I love that. So that shot on the right-hand side, he's putting all his weight on his front leg. He breaks the monotony of his front leg by putting his right heel behind him. I separate his arms from his body and lean forward. It's quite a masculine sort of, like I'm ready to do business. I'm like, it's got a very James Bond vibe about it. Don't you think that looks so much better than the left-hand side image? And magically my thumbnail picture will just go to the right-hand side. There we go. I was testing your skills there.
I was just going to jump in on one thing here, Jerry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Again, for this beginner audience like me, I'm not sure if we're dealing with full pros, amateurs, hobbyists. There's a big different group here. Okay. So I wanted to say one thing that I always realized when I talked about posing. You work with a lot of models and performers, mostly. Obviously, you photograph everybody that will be photographed, but it's quite easy to think that they already know what they're doing, how they look best, but that's not what's happening here. This process, you're going through understanding them. You've got the light, you've got the background. They don't know how the light's falling on them. They don't know how they're going to fit into the background.
That's
it's
right.
up to me or you, if you're watching this as the photographer, to sort of create those extra elements. Even here, this gentleman, the little separation from his body and the arms, which I noticed you do a lot, and like the guy with the chin that had the little gap under his chin. So you see the dimension, you always talk about depth, dimension. That doesn't happen by accident or by a professional model. That actually develops from the photographer. And I want to make that very, very clear. So
Look, I mean, this is the thing, Jack, and you know this. I built the foundation of my career photographing weddings. I mean, I still photograph weddings. I just photograph weddings, portraits, fashion, commercial, filmmaking. Like I do it all. If it's a human, I'll photograph it. Even cute puppies, I'm happy to do that too. But I'm saying I photograph mostly normal people. And if I do have a performer or a normal person, a civilian in front of me, we all need help. They don't know their angles. Even professional models don't know their angle. I am not that fashion photographer that just says, okay, dance, and then let me just fire off 3,000 shots. Yeah. I will almost pose every little finger because it's a methodical process. And after you get it wrong a lot of times, you simply just know how to get it right. How do I minimize a stomach? How do I get more abs? How do I minimize a double chin? How do I make ears look smaller and so on and so forth? There is a process, and that's what we're here to give you. We're giving you like little gems and hopefully giving you as much information as humanly possible. By the way, Joyce asked earlier, do I use a light meter? I just don't. With mirrorless, I use a light meter at the beginning of my career. You don't. I just believe you don't need a light meter because if you're shooting mirrorless, you're seeing live exposure. Just turn your aperture dial and your shutter speed or your ISO until it looks good. I know that sounds really crazily fundamental, but the way I work with my camera, I use mirrorless. I'm a Nikon ambassador. I use currently the Nikon Z9. I put a safe handheld shutter speed, 200, 250. I put my desired aperture, 2.8, 1.2, f4, depending on what I'm photographing. And then I simply move my ISO until it looks good in my camera. And I've learned to interpret the LED in my viewfinder, the EVF, to basically where I get detail. I'm after detail in highlights. So whether it's Caucasian skin, African-American skin, South Asian skin, doesn't matter. I'm after detail in the brightest highlight in someone's face. I find the rest of everything takes care of itself. Now, you could read the histogram, no problem, go for your life. An easy way to read a histogram, people don't know what that means. A histogram is that little mountain range that you see. Now, the mountain range can look like the Paramount Pictures beginning slide of their movie. Now, you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, think of the mountain range has to be contained if you want detail in the whites and the blacks. How do you remember which is the highlights and which is the blacks? Well, if you're reading the histogram, like if you're looking at me and you see a histogram, I want you to remember this. SH. Shadows on the left, highlights on the right. shadows on the left, highlights on the right. If it clips, as they say, if the mountain range cuts into there, then you've got black. Now, for me, a lot of my histograms actually don't look perfect because I sometimes don't want detail in the blacks. That's just my style of shooting sometimes. Depends on what you want. Anyway, long story. All right, let's look at a bad example of posing a couple and a good example. The bad example is they're just standing there waiting for you to do something. The shot on the right-hand side, she's clearly pointing the toe, her front toe towards me. It slides back in now because it's actually pointing her energy towards him. She's shifting all her weight on her back leg. She's arching her back, so we get that beautiful arch and that curvature of the back and the butt. Then he keeps his hand contained in her body, not wrapping around the waist because that would be a waste of a waist. She tenderly puts her hand on his chest and their heads go together. That's as simple as I can put it. Now, once you understand these fundamentals, by the way, these and many more slides will be in that freebie ebook that we'll tell you about if you stay to the end of the webinar today. Okay, let's keep on going. A lot to get through. All right, so we use those principles. I love triangular compositions. If you look at these two shots, what's more pleasing to the eye? Now, if you're in an English-speaking country, English language, where you read from left to right, we're conditioned to read from top left to bottom right. If you look at the shot on the right, it's more pleasing to the eye because it runs in that way. If you look at the left, it is still pleasing to the eye because triangles are pleasing to the eye. There's a certain harmony in triangles, and you can see many, many triangles in my posing. It's not just the overall image. Look at the legs. Look at his leg fanning out. Look at her elbow. Look at all those things. But this is using the exact principles, but in a sitting down kind of way. Let's keep on going. So posing, guys, practice. You can't demonize posing. You have to also make your subjects understand that, you know, if someone says, make me look natural, and they just got their hair and makeup done for 2 hours, well, that's just a contradiction. Make me look natural. Well, if you want to look natural, we would be photographing you watching Netflix in front of your TV. If you're coming to me for a portrait, chances are you want to look really beautiful, handsome, whatever it is that you want to do. Don't demonize it, practice it, and life will be good. Now, in camera technique, where do we go from here? As in, you know, how do we start? Well, composition, cropping, what lens do you choose? What's your exposure? We've covered that already. But let's discuss it in a bit more detail. There's many ways that we can get camera technique all right. In this case, you've probably seen this on the internet. You've probably done one yourself. If you haven't, you should. This is clearly the same woman cropped the exact same way with different focal lengths. I want you to see what happens to her eyes, her nose, her ears, her chin, her body. Look at the 24mm shot. Look at her body just disappear, but look at her nose looks bigger. Look at that 200mm one. Look how different it is to the other one. You need to understand what your lens does, make you understand also that if you shoot on a wider angle lens, the minute you put someone on the corner of a frame, then they're going to warp. So you've got to be careful. Be very, very, very careful. All right, let's move on. We're looking at Sean again, but we're looking at some different things here. Now, Sean, we've cropped him into the hair. I have no problem cropping into hair whatsoever. But watch this. If I crop just underneath his hairline, it makes his head look like it's actually bigger than it is, and it actually makes him look bald. We can't do that. Here, again, you quickly see the difference. Now, what I do is if I do want to crop into a face, I allow breathing space just above the brow, and I make sure that I don't crop the ear. That's an important one, okay? I'm making sure that I don't crop the ear. Now, this is an important one too. This took me like 15 years to work this out. I'm shooting a profile of somebody. All I'm seeing now is the sclera of his eye, the whites of his eyes, because naturally, if I look this way, I'm going to want to look exactly where my face is pointing. But what I do with him is I say this. So if this is the hand of the photographer, this is the subject, I say, keep your face there, but look at my hand. So it's unnatural to me, but I'm looking at, and then I say, all right, look at that tree. So now we go from this to this. Clearly a better shot. We see more iris. We see the catch lights on his iris. It becomes a better portrait. So don't forget that, yes, we build trust. Yes, we understand what's meaningful and purposeful for the person. That's the foundation of the 5 steps. Then we light them. We choose a complementary background. Then we pose them, and then we've got to get our in-camera technique, whether it's the lens choice, our perspective, our compression of our lens, and all these different things. Now, if you look at him here, he's staring. If you ever have someone that stares at you like this, it either means they've been looking at you too long or they're a serial killer. Just be careful of the latter. But this one, if you want to soften the eyes, simply get him to give you a hint of a squint. That basically means you go from passive or to staring to just give me a little bit of attention underneath the eyes, adds a bit of mystery, intrigue, and it makes me drawn to you more. If you drop the chin, now he's a handsome guy. You would call him pretty and handsome. If he drops the chin, that's more of a serial killer vibe or a come hither look. When a woman does it, it's more of a come hither look. When a guy does this, it's usually an aggressive look. So depending on what you're trying to say, remember, it doesn't always have to be pretty. It depends on what you're trying to say about the person that you're photographing. Now, step number 5. This is the most important part of today's lesson. How do you tie everything in together? How do you get a spark? How do you get someone drawn to the photograph? How do you make it memorable? How do you get an image and someone walks by it and they stop and stare at it? It is because of the expression. And when all these elements, the foundation of those 5 steps, and these 5 steps go in motion, if you just drop the ball at that 5th step, you've wasted a powerful opportunity. And it has nothing to do with your technique at this point. It has got to do with what you say, how you say it, and so on and so forth. So let's go through a couple of examples here. Here we see a portrait of a small family. You've got the parents here and the young kid. You've seen a couple of shots of these guys before. Looking at the camera passive, we've all done this shot. The next one would have been a smiling, looking at the camera. And then this one, I forgot what I said, but I just started making them laugh. I think I said, "Who's your favorite Australian?" And they just started laughing. And I think because one of them said Hugh Jackman. I'm like, wait a second, that was the wrong answer. And they started laughing. Now, let me show you, though, the portrait that was the most meaningful to them. Let's look at this. How did I shoot this? This was an open garage door with a black velvet background, and there was light, a continuous light behind them, offering a bit of separation. That was it. Anyone has got this light source. Open garage door, black sheet, and you literally get a bedside lamp and you point it to the back of them. You've got your shot. Now, in this case, why did I pose them like this? Well, the mum is the backbone of the family. She's the rock. She's stable, very elegant as well, very sophisticated. I've posed her in an elegant and sophisticated way. And really, because she's outnumbered 2-1, but we all know who's the badass here. And that's the mum, Marina. But then the whole world revolves around the young kid, the son. So he's front and center. And then you've got the father backing him up. Now, when I've explained it to you, and there's a lot more meaning to it, yes, you can see the 5 steps clearly in action. Now, what expression am I going for here? This is cool, confident, calm. This is who the family is. And therefore, we've got an effective portrait. Now, you've all probably seen the Taj Mahal. It's a glorified mausoleum of this king who dedicated to his queen who passed away. This is a classic shot that you've probably seen many times. I waited for this shot quite stupidly. Like, I'm literally there waiting to get this one vantage point where only one person can take this at a time if you want it centered. I'm like, I'm a photographer. Why am I doing this? I'll just buy a postcard. I asked my tour guide, I said, is there anywhere that I can see the Taj Mahal in a place that's uninterrupted? And he says, look, if we go there early evening, there's a perpendicular to here, you'll see a location. I said, fantastic, let's go. In the meantime, from India, we bought Melissa this gorgeous dress, and I wanted to take photographs of her. So now ignore the one of the columns that's being renovated. That's the only thing that I ended up retouching in the portrait that you're about to see. But I just got Melissa sort of flowing, turning left and right in the breeze. This was that beautiful, hazy, very afterglow sun. It just looked as stunning. So then a sandstorm came. This is what happened. A sandstorm came and just boom, it hit. Then I'm like, let me get the tour guide to hold my off-camera flash. This was my first test shot. It's pretty bad. Let me go again. I took another shot, and that was of this one. I posed her. It just didn't work. And then I thought to myself, all right, Jerry, what are you trying to say? What you may not know about the Taj Mahal is that it is a glorified mausoleum to a queen. The king, one of his sons wanted to be king. He actually ended up killing his brothers, sent his father to prison. Now, the prison that you'll see is the most beautiful prison in the world. It's on a cliff on camera right here, facing the Taj Mahal. The king said, take me wherever you want. Please make sure that I can enjoy my queen, the mausoleum, the monument to his queen. And he did that for the rest of his days. Anyway, let me show you a very, very brief video with a GoPro showing you exactly how my favorite shot of my career was made.
Not flirting, but just you're noticing me. You're turning around. You don't put the hands there. Just wherever your hand's going to take you. That's it.
We can see that you're clearly against the elements there, Jerry. What a situation.
Oh my goodness, it was insane. Yeah, look, when I thought about what am I trying to say here, I said to myself, I don't have the money to build, Melissa a mausoleum, and thankfully she's still with us and live and happy and healthy and well. But I would like to think, although I don't have the money to build her a monument, I love my queen more than he loved his queen. So I wanted her above the environment. I also wanted her the tone to be warmer. So I flicked my white balance to shade, which gives me more of a warm tone. And this is the shot that, where is the shot? Is it just gone? Did we have it here? Was it deleted? Did it go? For some reason, the shot has gone. So, Jack, I think you may have done it. I'll throw you under the bus again. But there is, where did it go? Is it somewhere in the deck there?
It is.
Maybe
not.
you can have. No worries. Okay. Well,
it's an amazing photo.
Let me let me see if I can bring it up or in some way. Hey, baby, can you find it and text it to me? And then I'm going to put it up on my feed. So sorry to build up that moment, and if you haven't seen it, but if you can find the image, baby, and text it to me, I'll actually show it on my phone. All right. Sorry to build that up, and sorry for that confusion, but I will show you the final result very, very shortly. Let's move on. We're talking about 5 steps to a powerful photograph and the emotion. This here are of these incredible twin tap dancing brothers. They perform in the show Absinthe here in Las Vegas, and they are super cool. I want to show you a shot here and how I evoke the emotion. This particular photograph, I used a continuous light source on either edge. I wanted to make my studio look like a garage. I wanted to make my studio look like a stage. So I love the fact that the dust was in my studio. I put 2 continuous spotlights on the ground. This could just be ordinary desk lamps, just pointed on the ground, boom. Then I have a spotlight, an aperture light 300 with a 26-degree spotlight attachment. It gives me a perfect circle, hence the spotlight on stage. Then I wanted them in full flight, so I get that beautiful shadow behind them. This was inspired by that Fred Astaire movie. It starts with an S. I totally forgot about it. There's a Fred Astaire movie. I just lost me. A Fred Astaire movie where there's a shadow play on the wall of him tap dancing. And also, they were strongly inspired by the pioneers of tap dancing and this duo, these twin tap dancing. I don't think they were twins, actually, but African-American Nicholas brothers, and they were their heroes. And that was basically it there. But let me show you now a video of how this next portrait was taken, because one of the brothers is more sensible and the other one is a little bit cheeky. So let me show you how I did that.
Go for it. We got you. We got you. Give me something that you're taunting him a little bit. Like he's totally ignoring you, but you're sort of, I don't know, you're twerking. Can you give me, like looking down, and then can you do the eyebrow? Like this? Can you do that? Yeah, that's it. Go for it. And then look at your brother and go,
And that's just perfect. You're so balancing everything we talked about so far, understanding the subject, everything else is perfect. And then you're bringing out this story that you're seeing happening in front of you. And there's some angry people in the chat about that photo. So I'm glad we finally have it.
I'm showing it right now. So can you cut to me full screen? There we go. Okay, there is the image right there.
Amazing.
Now, the exposure is a bit off because of the screen and all that kind of stuff, but that gives you an idea of that particular photograph. So maybe you can send a link and send a link to the guys on the thing as well. All right, let's get back to our presentation. Let's do it.
Yeah.
There had to be a glitch or two. It wouldn't be a broadcast if it was perfect. All right, let's show the next shot. Perfect. Okay, so you can clearly see the 5 steps in action here. Okay, so I've got that beautiful light coming through. Then location, I'm building a little mini set. I have a pedestal that was perfect for the guys to be on. What the pose? Well, let's have one of the brothers down and one actually tap dancing. And you clearly saw that Sean here on the pedestal is the cheeky one. He started twerking and having some fun. And my energy, I just started giggling, and I had that little high-pitched, contagious laugh that I've been told. And then I think I said, have some fun with him, like mock him a little bit. And that's how we got this incredible portrait. It's once you understand who the person or persons are, then you know how to actually move forward and have some fun. All right, now let me sort of break down a couple of things here too. So this portrait now, I'm going to break down the 5 steps, okay? But then end off with emotion, because it's really, really important to understand. So this is of Jason and Claire. They're a married couple. They're performers. He is an impressionist. She is one of those sexy violinists that play the violin to modern music and all that kind of stuff. So now what do I do first? First, I'm just after my fill light exposure. I get the biggest light source that I can behind me. I take a shot, and all I'm after is a little bit of detail. Not after a perfect shot yet. In fact, it's underexposed and it's a bad shot. But I'm only testing the light. I want to dampen the whole area as the metaphor of water it comes. Then what I do is I get my exposure for my hair light, my edge light. So in this case, I'm just putting on the hose. I just want it a little bit damp around the edges. Great. Then I've got my main light. So I do this individually and independently. My main light first, my fill light first, turn that off. My hair light, edge light, do that exposure, turn that off. Then my main light, turn that off. Then I put all 3 on, and hey presto, we have a really good exposure. Now all I need is the expression, because the background's nondescript. We've got the light right, the background's nondescript. The pose, well, that's going to help the emotion. People think posing is just about flattery, but it also is trying to tell you who the person is and who they are to each other. So they performed together as well. So they wanted a portrait that, one, shows off who they are, but as in, they're married, but they perform together. So he's an impressionist, he's a violinist. How on earth do you tell that story? Well, I went into wedding mode, cuddle up to her, bring the forehead touching. It just looks silly. I conditioned myself in a bad way here. Then I'm like, all right, let her get a bit of attitude here. Let's get Jason a bit of attitude. All right, maybe he's holding the bow. That might be a fun way of doing it. All right, well, you know what? Maybe bring him holding a microphone and let's get a bit of comedy going on, because he is, I wouldn't say call him a comedian. He's certainly very funny, but he's an entertainer. He's an impressionist and singer and all that kind of thing. So now we're getting expression from him. And what am I doing? I'm asking for it. I'm not asking for it in a subtle way. Let me see the expression, and then I would just give him emotions, pretend like you just saw this, or and asking him questions. Hey, give me an Elvis sound and have some fun with it. And it's amazing how that can work. And as you keep on going and asking for that emotion, I said, have some fun with it. Give her a funny face, which he did. And then we got that classic sort of Elvis, that over amplified expression. But let me show you the final shot that was chosen and the video behind it, and you'll get to see these 5 steps in action, and more importantly, that step number 5, which is emotion.
Okay, so you're going to hold the microphone with your right hand to his mouth, and you're going to hold that to him. I need, Jason, your hand lower. Yes, I need breathing space, basically. Think of it like that. Claire, bring your hand a bit forward like that. Forward. Stop. Too much. Come back. Stop. Ready. Over the top face you did. Ready. Close your eyes. Big laugh. 1, 2, go. That's the one. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. That's the one.
I love seeing these steps coming to life in front of me, Jerry. That photo would not exist without you. You know, like if you're a couple, you want to photograph a couple, they come to you, they want a great photo, and you maybe would have got those first 3, let them do whatever they want kind of thing.
Right.
But then because you're there, you understand who they are, you got to know them, be friends with them, they trust you, you pose them, bam, bam, bam. And suddenly you get this once in a lifetime memory that they will cherish and that speaks to anyone that looks at that photo about who they are as a character, as a unique individual. It's amazing.
No, thank you, mate. It's funny is that when you know you've nailed it, you've nailed it. It took a while to get there, as I clearly showed you. That didn't happen straight off the bat there. So let me just show you the next, like, let you focus on it for a moment. That clearly, you know, if you were to guess who they are, you'd say, all right, he's obviously a funny guy. She's obviously a violinist. They're together. Hey, this probably is a show. And most people would know who they are by looking at this photograph. So not only flattering and purposeful, but I know who they are. So that's an effective portrait. They're the 5 steps in action.
Beautiful.
Now, let me thank you. Let me keep on going here. So there's a breakdancer here. He's probably the best breakdancer in the world, Luca, a Red Bull champion. And I'm like, I want to do a composite of him, or a composite, as some of you in America might know it as. Well, what do? I just put a white background on the wall. I stick it on the wall, and then I want this to feel like sunlight. So I get a strobe. Now, and if you might say, well, I don't have a strobe. Well, you've got the sun. Just go in the backyard, buy a white paper roll, stick it on the side of your house, and then wait for the sun to be in position. Bare bulb flash. That's what it is. So I ended up taking these shots. Now you can look at if you look at the shot, it's quite crudely done. But what I'm doing here is I'm building the shots in my head. I'm actually picturing this. Like I need something at the peak of his flight. I need something falling this way, falling that way, going down. And the cool thing is we end up getting all the shots that we want and more. And these were the shots that we had to choose from. And we ended up producing this composite. In fact, I didn't do the post-production myself. Kelvin, who you might know, Kelvin from Kelvin Designs, produced this. Just an absolute master at what he does. So we worked together to achieve this composite. Let me show you one more here. This was just using one continuous light. It was a continuous light with a lantern modifier. And this is of a boxer MMA fighter. This actual tone was achieved in camera. These shots specifically are done in camera. You won't see any retouching on these several here. And using the sepia tone, the sepia picture control. So now I need a shot in the middle. I need a shot on the top left, the top right, the bottom left, the bottom right. And then I thought to myself, well, you know, athletes who work out, they really are proud of their backs. And I think many of us tend to make it go unnoticed. So what I do here is I crudely put them together in Photoshop and I lessen the transparency. So I'm crudely mocking up what this particular composite will be. And then with the help of Kelvin from Kelvin Designs, we create this. Now, to be honest, I should have shown you the footage because I just shot it recently. We printed this on a metallic print. We showed him and he was floored. He ended up actually sending me a gift a few days afterwards because he was so enamored. He didn't know what I was trying to do or to achieve, but because I know him, I don't know what's meaningful. That was it. Marina, who you saw with the family, we also did this particular composite. This is in my studio. This is using strobes. I need to build this in my brain. So I need a fulcrum. I need the centerpiece of this image of 3 of her. Then I end up taking multiple shots and then I choose this one. Of course, I'm going to deep etch them out and then place her and multiply her. That's the 3rd image. And then finally, we get to this shot, which again, Kelvin from Kelvin Designs ended up helping me bring my vision to life. I knew exactly what I wanted. He was my eyes and my hands in producing this, which I'm very thankful for. But guys, there are the 5 steps to a great photograph, but we haven't finished yet because I want to show you, I want to get you back full circle and show you the queen. because the Queen for me, Queen Claire as I call her, epitomizes the 5 steps and epitomizes what I try to do with my work. I want to make people laugh, make people cry, and make people hold their breath. So now let's have a look at a few more shots of the Queen and see what garnered that reaction that you saw. So let's start doing that.
Leave that hand there. With this hand, just right up. That's it. That's it. Good. Now bring this hand out. This one up. Bring it down. And then again, bring the elbow in. That's it. And a little bit more out this way. More. Good. Beautiful. Pretend like you're shushing. It's just... That's it. Yeah. So just put your fingers a bit closer to you. That's it. There you go. That's perfect. Don't move. I want a feeling that you're doing that to a child. So it's very soft. It's very like you're regal, but you're being a little bit mischievous with the child. Yes. And actually make the sound because it'll help the expression. Shh. Serious. Go for it. Just go. And eyes at me.
Jerry, you are the master of direction. It's absolutely stunning.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much. It's crazy that when you, like, when I look at something or someone, like, I know that, like, even now I'm getting goosebumps because I'm remembering the moment that I took that. There's magic in the air. Like, there's something drawing me. And then, like, she might move a certain way or do something. I'm like, wait a second. And I kept on pushing because you saw at the start of that little video clip, she was almost mocking me a little bit, like out loud, whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And then she did it. And then finally it was the moment after the moment. And then we got this really beautiful shot of her.
And it's a great example. I'm going to just want to say one thing. It's a great example. When we talked about posing, people not knowing what to do. This sweet girl didn't really want to be in front of your camera and didn't know how to pose, was super nervous, kind of embarrassed, being cheeky as a result. And it was all over to you to pull these out of her. And she's capable, evidently.
Yeah.
But it's magic in front of us.
Thank you, mate. Let's play the next clip here.
Hold your hands up like this. Perfect. Just roll this wrist in this way. Feet on the ground perfectly. Good. Chin up. Facing. Just this way. Chin right up. Okay, I need regal, strong woman. That was awesome. It looks so good.
So you it was always going to happen. She was going to yawn at one point. And I'm just thankful that it happened at that moment. The cool thing about this photograph is you don't know whether she's yawning or she's singing opera. For those playing at home and curious about the lighting situation here, I ended up getting a beauty dish on top of her this time. We ended up having a reflector underneath her, and then we had a light behind her, as you can see, causing that beautiful glow that mirrors the shape of her ruff, as they call it, or collar. Let's now look at something a little bit more flattering, let's say. Let's look at this one, next one.
Tilt this way. Oh, this way. Turn face that way. Face that way. That's it, chin up. That's gorgeous, don't move. Chin up more.
So you can sort of see how just a change of light direction can make you feel a very different way by looking at the exact same person wearing the exact same clothes. So you see how those 4 steps make a massive difference in the building of this portrait from scratch. But that final step, it's not just, don't think of emotion as a laugh or a cry. It could also be just the pose is doing the emotion. It's the energy that I'm actually giving her with my tone of voice. That is what evokes the emotion. You can see how the hands are very delicately on her. That is evoking emotion. After the eyes, the hands are the most expressive. You should be using them. Let's look at the next video.
Bring your chin down, Dal. So chin up, chin forward. So whoop and down. That's it. Just about there. And eyes down. Tilt this way. Yeah. And face to the right. That's it. Good. Don't move. Turn your face more that way. Stop. That's it. Now eyes where your face is pointing. Give me a bit more of a bit more mischievous look. That's it.
It's fantastic seeing these 5 steps play out in front of us, Jerry, and seeing the amount of time you're able to take to create these photos. Even though she doesn't want to be photographed, even though she's uncomfortable, because she trusts you and she's feeling the care and the connection that you have, she's willing, and you're able to create these amazing things using this system. It's fantastic.
No, thank you, mate. That's the thing, is that you would have seen me there be very, very slow and methodical with what I was doing. And it's funny because recently someone asked me what my personality traits are and were, and I said these two words put together are sort of an oxymoron, but it really epitomizes my approach. I'm aggressively patient. I'm aggressively patient, as in I know exactly what I want, but I will be patient to achieve it. I think that too many of us, especially artists, namely, of course, photographers in this conversation, is that we want to get there quickly. We want instant gratification. My dopamine hit is not what you're about to see, and you'll see her reaction to these photographs. Although it's certainly very rewarding, my dopamine hit is the actual process of doing it, the pleasure of seeking the light, the pleasure of seeking the location, of constructing the pose, on building that technique and evoking that emotion. That is my true joy and my happy place. The fact that people love my work or they enjoy it, and it's not every time, that's a bonus. And what you're about to see now is probably the most rewarding reaction to any photographs that I've ever produced in my career. The prelude to what you're about to see is this. The mother said to me that, look, my daughter, although I believe she's the most beautiful girl on the earth, she lacks confidence. She doesn't really believe in herself. She doesn't know her own worth. I mean, I think many parents could identify with having a young teenage daughter that may feel the same way. I'm not a parent, so I don't identify with the mother exactly, but I my nieces and I understand that complexity and that relationship. But when she sees herself now, check out her reaction and understand the power of a portrait and what it can do for a human being.
Okay. We are done.
Yeah. Ow. You are amazing. I've never seen somebody work that hard, but slide off. Go right to the back of that camera. Oh my goodness.
Are you ready? All right. Hold on. Are you ready? Come closer.
I feel like it's gonna be like a really scary one. Where I'm like yawning.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
If you go up, there's detail there. It's just enough detail there to just know what's going on.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy. That's you.
All right.
That doesn't even look like.
I know.
All right. Give me a second. Let me. You are so beautiful.
I might cry actually.
You should cry. Check that out.
I really stop. I don't want to cry. It's amazing. Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Are you making me cry? Look, I'm all misty now myself.
I actually do. I think this is like, I never felt better about myself.
Oh.
Like in a photo shoot.
You are so beautiful.
Check that
and
out.
So awesome.
Look at you.
I can't believe that's me.
Just even the moments between moments, like.
My yawning now. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
like,
I love that.
that is such a good shot.
I just feel pretty, so yay. I actually feel like a princess.
You're a queen. You're not a princess.
Oh, queen.
And I want you to keep that crown.
Yes, that belongs to you.
I want you to keep it so you remember this shoot.
Oh no, I don't.
Come on, just give me a hug.
Own that crown, Claire.
It's your crown, okay?
You made that yours.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Okay, I'm fine.
So excited.
Give me a hug, Mum. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Well, I'm teary-eyed watching that, but that is the reaction I think all artists aspire to create with their camera, with their art, and because what's happening there is you have changed that person's life, you've understood them, and created something just truly life-changing. It's so beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, look, I look at this and I get goosebumps every time, and I'm actually trying to hold back the tears myself because I knew how much it meant to her. Almost more important than the daughter. Look at the mother. She's like, do you believe me now? Do you finally believe that, you know, that all the confidence and everything that I've built over the years, whatever, and sometimes you just need to hear it or see it from a stranger. The fact is, though, that did I make her look pretty? Sure. Is it for me, I'm just the conduit. I feel like I'm the vehicle. I just gave her permission to feel beautiful about herself and show her something that was already there. And I saw one of the comments there. Someone said, "Look, this is my why." That's the idea, guys. If you want to be an effective storyteller, you need to understand what your why is and what the why of the person who's coming to get their portrait taken. It is more than just a pretty shot. I mean, this is why we still have a space in the industry. Whether you're a hobbyist, whether you're a professional, semi-pro, doesn't really matter. Will there always be room for someone to craft a portrait like us in 5 steps rather than rely on a friend with an iPhone? Of course there is. They can't do what we've just showed you in the last hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it's been. We need to understand these 5 steps and remember that repetition, experience, and practice will always be your best teacher.
Yeah, and I want to hear from you guys. Like, is this the sort of impact you would like to create with your camera, with your art? And because if it is, people are saying, "Oh, Jerry, you're the king. You're not human." But sadly, I mean, luckily for us, Jerry is human, and it can be replicated. These techniques can be used in our own art. It is that repetition, experience, and practice. And that you need a system, you need to use it, you need to follow it and repeat and practice those techniques. And this is an emotion you will be able to create in one of your subjects at some point down the line, whether it's tomorrow or with some practice, months, whatever it is. This is the goal. And it was such a beautiful thing to achieve. And yes, people are saying, yes, absolutely, I want to do this all day long. And so I want to find out, how are we doing? Are we enjoying everything so far? I know we've covered a lot. We're going to jump into the Q&A in just a second. So there's a Q&A only tab in the chat. If you drop some questions in there, Melissa and I will make sure those all get answered. But I want to see how you're doing and make sure that what we've covered so far has been useful. People are saying, yes, thankful, it's amazing, always much appreciated. You rock, Jerry and Melissa, a real king. This was amazing, absolutely, I'm loving it. So yes, it seems like we have managed to deliver a good amount of information to people today so far. So could you use what we've covered so far, or what Jerry's covered? If you could understand your subjects, to know what story to tell, use the lighting effectively, get the harmony in your images with the background or whatever it is you want to include, pose masterfully to improve that story, use your camera without even thinking as a tool, and evoke that emotion that creates the powerful portrait that makes your subject cry when they see it with joy, would your photography improve? My answer is yes. And I'm seeing yeses flying in here, Jerry. This is a system that is so usable, easy to learn, and you can start doing it right away. Now, we've covered a lot, but we are just getting started, guys. We have something pretty exciting. So if you listen to all this and you're like, yeah, I get the sort of philosophy behind this, but I need a bit more. I need a bit more hands-on understanding. Well, we've got just the thing for you. We are going to take things to the next level right now. Here it is, guys. Today, we are introducing Jerry's Portrait Photography Complete Bundle. This is a 45-hour immersive masterclass experience with in-depth behind-the-scenes training. Every step of this 5-step process is fully covered, from ideation, thinking up an idea, planning the shoot, all the way through to the final retouching. And here's what you're going to get. So the first masterclass is the portrait photography masterclass. Do you want to tell us a bit about this, Jerry?
Yeah, look, I'm so excited about this. I spent a lot of time preparing this. This is a very, like, I've seen a few of the comments of people like love watching me shoot. The difference with this particular bundle is that you not only get to see every single one of these photographs created, of course you saw a couple of them, you'll see the shoot surrounding it. And not only that, I'll often stop and look at the camera and talk about exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So every single one of these shots is actually covered. And it is the most comprehensive portrait class I've ever done. And that's not me being a salesman. I'm just very proud of it. And if you've learned a lot in an hour and a half or so, imagine 50 hours on your own time and when you want, you know.
Absolutely. So that's not it, guys. So that's how we've broken this up. Is you get the portrait photography masterclass, which, as you saw, is those colorful, bright, beautiful images. But Jerry, being the lord of photography that he is, had to dive in, narrow in these techniques to make sure that each area of it you can actually master and nail. So then we jump into the black and white portrait photography masterclass. Let's hear about this one.
Yeah, look, I love shooting black and white in camera. Of course, I shoot raw, so it doesn't really matter. You can do what you want. But when I'm feeling the shoot in black and white, I'll photograph it. And I'm really after an incredible moment. I'm after that beautiful contrast. And I break down all of these steps, showing you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it. And again, it's a very beautifully digestible, curated course. I'm very, very proud of this.
Absolutely. And this isn't one of those things where it's not a biographical lesson about how Jerry became really good. This is you following every step of the journey. So you can actually learn those techniques and use them in your own art. It's not there's a lot of weight, let's say, to this training. It's absolutely incredible.
No doubt.
Yeah. So then we jump into portrait retouching, which we've seen some of these images so far. But Jerry, do you want us to take us through this one?
Yeah, look, those who know me personally, I am not a Photoshop expert, and I'm not about to profess that I am. I always try to get it right in camera, but it does take someone to bring out the best in an image. And I had to call my friend, Christina Shirk from Shark Pixel. She just does a killer job. So look at this shot. This is, done well in camera, as good as it can be in camera, but check out the retouching of this. Watch this next shot. Oh, I thought... let me look at that shot. It's just crazy. So you will see Christina with my direction go through methodically, and every step of how that image was retouched is actually going to be shown here. So think of it that way, is that every single photograph in the color portrait bundle of me photographing them, they will be retouched, and also the black and white as well, which of course you're coming to as well.
Yeah. So we have the full shooting portion for both color and black and white, and then the full retouching for both those areas. And it's absolutely masterful work. Yes, Jerry's in-camera work is incredible, but to get that final finesse of the shot, the sort of magazine quality, billboard quality retouching, that's what you're going to learn in these two masterclasses. So who is this bundle for? Whether you're just getting started in photography or you're sort of semi-pro, hobbyist, doesn't matter. If you're trying to improve your portraiture, if that's your goal, this is for you. It does not matter where you are, and it's going to help your art stand out online and get the attention it deserves because you'll have the right techniques. Now, you might think, well, I don't really have time to study 45 hours of training, or it's going to be too expensive, or it'll be too difficult to learn, or too difficult to use. The truth is, as a photographer, you probably have, let's say, maybe $1,000 worth of equipment. Some have more, some have less, that you maybe aren't putting to use at its full potential. This curriculum is actually going to help you achieve that. And if you just do 10 minutes a day of a course, 10 minutes a week, gradually you'll develop all your techniques, you'll be practicing, getting the repetition, all that stuff, and you will get enormous value from this curriculum. So here is everything you're going to get, guys. In the Portrait Photography Complete Bundle, you get the Portrait Masterclass, the Black and White Portrait Masterclass, and both the retouching portions for all of that. If we sold those to you today at the normal price, it would be $628 of value. Obviously, we're not going to do that, but there is actually more included here. And we saw some of these images earlier, but today we're also adding the Portrait Composite Masterclass into this bundle. So let us know about this one, Jerry.
Oh man, so I had the vision of these composites in my head, but it does take someone with expertise to put them together. So with my direction, Kelvin, who's a master at what he does, Kelvin from Kelvin Designs, we sat down together and talk about aggressive patience. Kelvin was there and following sort of my lead there, but you will see Kelvin produce these images from scratch. And like that top left one, it's a different environment. You've got clouds being put in, that one of the Jessica Rabbit homage. There's just so many there that I'm very, very proud of. And I learned a lot myself doing it, to be honest. So I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm sure you guys will too.
Yeah, and this, just to be clear, this isn't for Photoshop pros. You don't need a huge knowledge of Photoshop to apply and do exactly what you're seeing on screen right now. And the beauty of having this skill set in your arsenal, whatever you want to call it, is that once you've got these amazing photos, you're using the 5 steps to powerful portrait. This is a way to actually iterate on that and create more work, create something more impactful, something that does stand out more, and give gifts to your models like Jerry described with the MMA fighter, that create a real impact and also cement a bond as an artist to a performer for future work, to develop further conversations down the road. So very useful skills and not hard to learn. So everything included in here. So we've got those 5 masterclasses, guys. That's 45 hours of training. The regular price would be $927. And obviously, we're not going to charge you that today. I know you're here. You're serious about photography. You've learned so much. And if you're still here, it means you want to learn more. So you're not going to pay that. But if you did, and all it taught you was how to create the best images of your life and have every subject that comes in front of you beg to be photographed by you again and again and again, to help your photos stand out online and really unleash your full artistic potential, would it be worth the $1,000 that this would be at full price on Jerry's website? The answer for me is categorically yes, because I can put my $1,000 camera to use finally, rather than hating myself after every photo I take. So here's the thing. There's 2 things you can do. Jerry's taught you for free for an hour and 55 minutes. You can take that information, you can go out into the world, and good luck to you. Put that to the test, see what you can achieve, and we wish you all the best. The second option is to make a small investment in yourself as an artist. Take that small leap of faith to get really useful technology and education from one of the absolute leaders in this space to hit your photography goals at a fraction of the pace. So guys, today, for those of you joining us on this webinar, this 45-hour bundle of Jerry's 5 most popular masterclasses is now available for $199, which is an extra saving of the usual website price, which is $299. So it's an absolute screaming deal, and I really hope that you guys get involved. And for those of you that are with us today, if you buy this within the next 15 minutes, you also get 2 pretty special additional items, which are this community bonuses. So you'll get access to the Jerry Guiones Facebook group. That's where a lot of his students hang out and share pictures and ask questions. It's a really vibrant community of photographers on the same journey, and you can get your questions answered. And then every now and then, Jerry pops in there and does a Q&A and sort of sees how everyone's doing. So there's a huge amount of value from that, and you will be joining a group of like-minded artists all on the same journey. So here it is, $199. There should be a bottom in the right-hand corner. It'll just take you to the landing page. And if not, just head to jerryguiones.com/portrait bundle, and you will see everything there. And yes, very important, guys. If you study this curriculum, 45 hours, if you're doing it and I actually think Jerry's a terrible teacher, I don't like this, my photography is not improving, I'm not changing, that's totally fine. If you don't like it, just let us know, email us, and we will offer you a 100%, no questions asked, money back guarantee, because we want you to be happy. And if you're not enjoying it, then we'll give you your money back. So yeah, let's jump into the Q&A. I'd love to see your questions popping up on the right-hand side here. But yeah, these bonuses are only available for the next 15 minutes. You're getting an amazing, amazing deal today, guys. Almost $1,000 worth of photography training from start to finish, idea to finished photo for just $199. Anything you want to add there, Joe, before I jump into the Q&A?
Yeah, look, it's funny. Like, as you were rattling all that off, I'm like, it's taken me 30 years to produce those 45 hours. And I say this humbly, I wish I had this training when I started 30 years ago, because there was nothing like it. And I've been teaching for a very, very, very long time. I've produced digital products for a very long time. And really, this is an incredible progression. There's the value in the way it's presented. I'm very proud of, because it's multi-camera, and also you get to see what's in my EVF. Like when you saw those clips, like all of the shoots have my EVF footage, which means you can see exactly what I'm seeing, and thinking out loud and sharing that information. Like I said, I'm very excited about it. I'm looking at the price. I'm like, oh, damn, I think we should have charged a lot more, because so much time, energy, and money went into producing all of this. But I'm very, very excited. And this stage in my career, I'm still a working photographer, but I'm very, very proud to be in a position to support photographers and lift them up and spread some joy. And hopefully, you guys get to experience the kind of joy that I've experienced in my career. And if I can help you get there faster, then that I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
Absolutely. And just to put your mind at rest, we will be charging more for this bundle. This is purely just for those joining us in the webinar today.
That's funny.
It's a one-time, very special offer. So yes, I saw a great question earlier when you were talking about focal lengths, and you showed how it changes the person's form and their features, eyes, and everything. So the question was, what's the quote unquote best lens for portraits for a beginner if you can only buy one lens?
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. I mean, let me just tell you my favorite lens at the moment. I'm obsessed. I've been obsessed the last couple of years with the 85mm f1.8. Nikon released an 85mm f1.2, and I had the pleasure of consigning that recently. And it was just butter. It was so beautiful. Like the mystical quality of that fall off, the sharpness, all that kind of stuff. Now, most of my career was with the 70-200. I'm getting a bit older now, and my back's starting to hurt, and I'm trying to save my back. So 85mm and whatever the fastest you can afford is, that's what I would go for. Macros are really good too, like 105 micro. That'll help you go as close to some of the shots that you've seen today, and also be a beautiful telephoto lens. So it doesn't mean you always have to shoot close up with a macro. You can just treat it as a normal focal length. But 85 is probably my go-to one now.
Okay, great. And then there was a question that was about how this curriculum, this 45-hour, the 5 masterclasses, how that differs from your previous stuff, and is there any crossover?
There is, I got to say, zero crossover. This is literally was purpose built. This was, hey, we really need to get something out there with portraits. I mean, I've photographed portraits and fashion my whole career. A lot of people know me for weddings, but take the veil off, it's a portrait. For me, I have probably, not probably, factually, I have photographed more portraits than weddings in the last several years. So, and I've really honed in my craft. And also part of moving to Vegas here is actually having a studio where I can play. And funnily enough, I end up shooting things in a very basic way, and sometimes they're more elaborate. And I'm like, well, so why not have some fun? So this is unique to the bundle. The retouching is unique to the bundle. This is digestible and curated, and the only way that you can get this is through this bundle. This will not be offered in any other capacity. So it's like I said, I like the fact that it's in 2023, and beyond. I think people have learnt, they do like learning in a digestible, curated way. Like there's no, exactly what you're going to get. You saw many examples of me showing those videos of what we're going to do. Now imagine I talked into the camera and explained, like I'm doing now, what I was doing and why I was doing it. And then you get to see the retouching of it as well from beginning to end. It is the most comprehensive portrait curriculum I've ever produced. And like I said, I can't wait for you guys to watch it and learn. And if you see me at a convention or you see me on the street, I want you to just share with me the results of your training. I'm excited about what you guys can do with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, chuck those questions in the chat. Do take advantage of this offer. If the button isn't working, head to jerrygionis.com/portrait bundle. And beware, as soon as we end off this broadcast today, the extra $100 off this bundle will be going away. So make sure you take advantage of that right away. I saw quite a good question here. Cesar said, with all the events happening in the world, what's the next step in the photography industry?
I mean, look, AI has taken over, and I still haven't really focused on that and what it means. I think I believe there'll always be room for an artist who can connect with their subjects, who can tell a story, who can be human about it, and all that kind of thing. But AI is certainly something that we should acknowledge, but not be too threatened by, because we don't need 1,000 portraits a year. We might just need one a month. So the next thing is that I think there's also like a mini renaissance happening. I think the power of print is coming back. I think that there are so many portrait print-based studios making a killing, because there's many photographers who dismiss it and say, my clients they just want digital. I'm like, well, there's a lot of people who want print. And this process of understanding how to create a compelling portrait makes it compelling enough to buy. Well, that is you're in the lead. You know what I mean? Like, you could own your zip code if you are acknowledging the power of print and knowing how to create from scratch a compelling portrait that is, purposeful and flattering.
Yeah, and I think also in terms of how you live your life, you live in Vegas. There's an unending flow of amazingly talented performers around you. If you're a photographer and you're worried about the future, looking after those people that need photos of themselves is the best way to guarantee some kind of income or community or group of artists.
Sure, of course.
So I see a bunch of people saying, yes, I just purchased the class. So exciting. Thank you. Really excited to get started. I'm so excited for people. Thank you so much for taking advantage of this. You are going to love everything that is included here. There was a great question about approaching models. Let me just try and find it. Yeah, she said, I'm a bit nervous to approach subjects. Any tips or resources for finding models?
Yeah, great question. Okay, there's a few things. So first of all, you can go to your local agency. So depending on what part of the world you're from, find out what the best agencies are, modeling agencies, and don't just look for modeling agencies. Look for talent agencies, as in actors and so on. And then they have, most agencies call them what they call their fresh faces. It means brand new talent that haven't been established models for a while. They need to build their book, their folio. And you say, hey, I'm a local artist, photographer. I'd love to actually join with you. And I'd love to do some model tests. That's what they call them, model tests. And then you all give your time for free, as in you as a photographer, the model. Maybe you've got a friend who's a hair and makeup artist. And you all get together and you play. And everyone gets to use the images and share them. Other than that, you've got like websites like Model Mayhem, Star Now. And also, to be honest, and going back to the original part of your question, I am not a shy person, which you probably already found out. I will be at the Cheesecake Factory or a restaurant or whatever, and I will see a handsome guy or a cute girl, and I'm like, well, how do you approach him? Well, first of all, be empathetic. If you just stop and pause and ask a waiter or a waitress, how are you today? What's the dream? Or I might even say, hey, when you come back and when you're giving us our main course, can you tell me the most interesting thing about you? And it's just empathy. And then all of a sudden you get a great conversation going. And then you say, hey, but, and then if you ask someone about themselves, they're going to say, well, what do you do? Well, glad you asked. I'm a photographer and I'm always looking for great talent. I love your look. Can I photograph you? Now, be careful if you're a guy and you're alone and you get a young woman and then you say, hey, you're just going to be one of those guys, those creepy freaking guys. What you want to do is this, and whether you're a guy or a girl or whatever, this is a really cool tool. I don't have it with me right now, but I have a beautiful little postcard, and it basically has a beautiful, compelling portrait on the front, and on the back there's a little blurb. It says, hi, my name is Jerry Gionis. I'm a local photographer. My wife and I, so I quickly disarm the young, pretty girls. My wife and I are here in Las Vegas. We love your look and would love to photograph you. And then I very, very unassumingly, unthreateningly give this card, hey, I love your look. My wife and I would die to photograph you. And if my wife wasn't with me, I would always mention her so that it's a very quick disarming thing. I give them the card, and guess what? I've several of the muses that I've actually used in the portrait bundle are people that I just met off the street. And it's fantastic. They become part of your circle. And when you want to test something or photograph someone or do a display, you've got new muses to play. with. So it's great.
That's great advice. Okay, there was an awesome question about MacGyver. You said you like to feel like MacGyver, which was, I can't find it right now, but basically he was saying, what are some things that I should get that was going to cost $100 to get studio quality lighting effects, things to bounce light off, all those things, without having to buy lighting and C-stands and all those other things.
Well, you asked the question, what would MacGyver do? And at the beginning of my career, if you don't know the show MacGyver, there's basically a fictional character that was sort of like a do-gooder. He was sort of like a vigilante, but not in the Batman sense, but he would just, find ways to help people, but he would get locked in the tool shed and drive out with a bus. I mean, he would make a bomb out of things in the refrigerator. He was very resourceful. And at the start of my career, and I was obsessed with his show, I would say to myself, if MacGyver was a photographer, what would he do? MacGyver wouldn't save up $1,000 and buy some lighting if that's all he could afford. He would find lighting in his existing environment. In other words, if it illuminates, use it. If there was a Pro Photo sticker on an illuminated billboard next to a bus stop, you would think of that as a light source. I'm saying if it illuminates, use it. Now, what I would do if I were you, you could even just play with your phone. I mean, all these techniques that we're sharing right now, they can be done with your phone if you didn't have a professional DSLR or mirrorless camera. I'll give you an example. I remember someone in London, I was teaching the MacGyver approach, like how do you make something extraordinary from something ordinary? And he said, Jerry, look, I challenge you to create something really compelling within 5 steps of where you're standing. And I said, look, I don't have a camera because it wasn't a shooting seminar. So I said, all right. And the projector that was projecting my very presentation was actually projecting on the wall. I found something off-white on my computer. Now I have a very soft, beautiful, warm light. So now the projector was the light source. I take the tablecloth off the actual projection table. It was a crappy old wooden table. The very glass of water that I was drinking, I poured the glass of water on the table. I grabbed the very first girl that on the corner who was watching me, who was a student. I got her, she laid down, she put her chin on the table. So if you can imagine now, there's a crappy table, water dripping off the table. She's literally got her chin on the table with water dripping. I get another student to hold the projector. Then I put my camera, my lens, very close to the reflective surface. Remember, the closer you go to the reflective surface with your lens, the more vivid the reflection. I take one shot, I put it straight in the computer, and people just freaked out. Now, that was because I was forced to think differently. If you have a great background and a great subject and you've got a light, you don't think like that. You don't think about challenging yourself like that. So for me, I just walk around and I'm like, what can I use around me? And like I said, I mean, at my workshop, someone asked in the chat, do I do in-person workshops? We've got several this year. We've got one in Vegas. We've got one in New York. We've got one in London. We're about to do one in Australia as well. But when I do a workshop, just to reiterate what I said at the start of the show, is I literally look for the worst locations at the workshop. I sometimes look for the pretty ones as well, and then I create something out of nothing. I think it's a more valuable lesson. So yeah, look, it's fun, man. You just got to practice it. You've got to train your brain to see light differently. And again, think of light like water. You will never unsee it. And then you practice it. That's the fun part. Remember, just experience the joy, man. Don't rob yourself of the joy. Just know that these growing pains should be like growing joyful, like sort of, your brain is just sort of expanding a little bit. So therefore, it hurts a little bit. That's okay. That's what it should be,
Yeah, totally. And I think it's important if you're watching this and you think, well, maybe this isn't for me because I don't have a Nikon Z mirrorless, all singing, all dancing this, or I don't have a beauty dish or the octopus. You don't need all that. As Jerry just described, you just need the approach, the techniques, and the process to get the image created. All that other stuff is just additional things.
Well, it's funny, like the very classes that like the title, like the box covers, so to speak. If you look at that second photograph, and you'll see me photograph this in the bundle, but just to explain to you how I did it, that was just the sun peeping through my wooden Venetians at home. In fact, she got her hair and makeup done. We're about to drive to the location of where we're going to go, and I'm like, wait a second. and then I pull the levers back, very similar to what you're just seeing right behind me right there. Actually, they were the exact ones, but from the other side. I pull the levers back, I turn her face and I tilt it, and I've made her look like Catwoman. It almost looks like the mask of Catwoman on her face. Now, if I did that photograph at the beginning of my career, which I've done many times, I used to put the shadow underneath her nose and above her lips, and it makes it look like a mustache. So I've learned from my mistakes. The fourth photograph of that guy, that was an open garage door. So the portrait bundle complete one, the one that's directly above our heads, that was an open garage door. That was it. So just know that, yes, I've got a bunch of gear, but doesn't mean I have to use it all. And that doesn't mean that I do. And it also depends on if you're a hobbyist, if you're a semi-pro or a pro. I don't care what you do. If you're here still watching this, it means you love photography. Now, if you've got the bug like I do, you'll never get rid of it. It'll be there until the day you leave this earth. So you might as well enjoy it, and you'll enjoy it more if your confidence grows, and your confidence will only grow if you practice. So practice.
You just glossed over a pretty epic golden nugget of Jerry Gionis joy, which is that you're never not looking for a photo. You have your model, you're getting ready, you're planning to go out, and she walks out and you go, oh, wait, hold on. I see this. You're looking at light, you're looking at location. It's always there, which I think is very important. And I know I've fallen into the trap of okay, cool. I want to go to that position and take a photo because I saw that background once and I'm just going to 10-minute drive. But rather than just walking there and seeing what else comes up or whatever it is, having the camera out in the car even, I'm just focusing on that moment and maybe missing 30, 50 other or one beautiful moment, beautiful light, beautiful background, because I was too focused on that thing. I didn't pause, like you constantly teach, be purposeful. I wanted to reiterate that because I think that's a very powerful little nugget. So there's some questions about this. So this is not a subscription. This is a one-time payment of $199. And you'll have lifetime access. You can stream it on any device. You get a login with a library of all these courses that saves your position in the course. So if you log in from your computer at home and then you taking a break at work, and you want to do a little bit of work, then your position will be saved. You'll always have access to it. And there were some people that were having some difficulties. Guys, if you have any issues purchasing this or any issues with using this, we have a dedicated support line. Just email them. It's support@jerrygionis.com. They will make sure that you are well looked after. And for those of you at the webinar today, we want to make sure you're all very well looked after. And the last thing I wanted to address on that is the gift. Your free gift that you're getting today, the posing cards that Jerry talked about earlier. You will get an email about that in probably an hour or so. But today at some point, you will definitely get an email. Check your spam. Sometimes those notifications end up in the spam folder. I'm sorry about that, but you will get a link to add that to your account today, I promise you. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here. Valerie says, did you receive my question? I'm not sure I did, Valerie. I'm very sorry. One sec. Okay, so here it is. So what camera should I upgrade to? I'm using a Canon EOS T3i.
Well, look, I'm a Nikon ambassador. I don't know what is in that ecosystem. All I would say is that you've got to look at the genre of photography that you do, match the sophistication of the equipment that you want with how much you can afford. So it's simply, if you have X amount to spend, like if you've got $1,000, $2,000, whatever it may be, go to the camera system that you like and say, what's the best one that I can afford within that budget? Now, some people say, should I switch? Go this, that. Well, I can't say that the Nikon camera system is the best at everything with every feature. That's impossible. I'm camera monogamous. I don't test every single thing out. If you're at that point where you want to invest in a camera system, I would go to a camera store or maybe rent a few in the range that you do, and then you can hold them in your hand. You can look at the menu, get a feel for it, and then you soon find the one that suits you. So just the best camera that you can afford with the budget that you have.
Well, let me ask you a perfectly teed up question there, Jerry.
Sure.
Do you think if I was going to make a camera purchase, would my photos improve more by buying a new camera or by purchasing $199 worth of Jerry Gionis training?
Well, this is the thing, right? People will not think twice about they've got an 85 millimeter f2.8 lens, and then they'll get the 1.8 lens, and they'll happily spend $1,000 because you prefer bokeh. And I'm like, well, okay, so great, no problem. Will it improve your photography? It might give you a different look. But the camera is only a tool. You make the difference. It's not like we hear about Djokovic's new tennis racket. It's just not on our radar. How do you play the game? If Djokovic showed you, by no means am I likening myself to him, but let's just call that different realm. But if Djokovic was to show you the tips on how to play tennis, how to be attack, how to defend, how to lob, how to serve, what he's learned on his entire career, would that be more beneficial than buying a better tennis racket? Well, of course, absolutely it would. And that's the idea, is that many of us geek out about gear. I geek out about people. I really do. So even a couple of weeks ago, when at a big convention, WPI here in Vegas, I said to people, I encourage you that when you're here to collect everybody's superpower. Like, you're not there to mimic anyone. You're there to understand what makes me click, right? Literally. And if you do that effectively, if you grab the superpower of everyone that you've learned from, then you become your own Avenger. And that's the idea. It's not the suit that makes you the superhero. It's what you do with it. And what you do with it is, well, if I can get into the brain of someone who's been photographing for 30 years and see the process literally from concept to execution and to final result, that is priceless. And I'm not being a salesman. I believe that. People who know me personally, I've seen a few familiar names here, that's my ethos. That is everything that I'm all about. It's all about inspiration, sharing inspiration, integrity, and the craft, which I'm obsessed with, and I still am. I literally came back from an 8-day shoot in a row. No, actually, at a portrait session the day before that, 9 days in a row. We shot a short film. I shot 4 or 5 different subjects, from a couple to dance partners to a normal portrait and I'm still obsessed. I love it. I just love the process. And that's what I'm saying. I think too many of us rob ourselves of that joy of the process. Whereas I had the same joy even when I was doing crappy work, because it was fun not getting there.
Yeah. I know. I have to say, whenever I watch any of your videos or listen to you talk, after 30 years, you'd expect a degree of jaded attitude towards it, but you are so excited about photography, so excited about art, so excited about teaching, and it's infectious. And for those of you, I see dozens of people have taken advantage of this. And for those of you that are going to watch this material, you will feel that infectious attitude towards improvement and creating art and joy with your camera. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask one more question before we end off. So guys, I think we're going to do one more question, then we'll end off for today. So just a few moments to take advantage of this offer before that happens. So here we go. It was a really beautiful question. Who would you like to photograph the most that's still alive? Why, and what would you do with them?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Oh my goodness. That's a tough one, because, for me, I find pleasure in, the old saying where you treat normal people like rock stars and rock stars like normal people. The pleasure of actually getting Claire, of photographing her and making her a queen inside and out, I wouldn't trade that for anybody in the world, literally. Now, if you were just talking flippantly as a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, who would you love to photograph? Dead or alive, I would have killed to photograph Marilyn Monroe. I think that she would be incredible. Dead or alive, I would love to photograph Jesus. I think he would be a compelling portrait. Today, who have I seen that I would just love to photograph? I mean, when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were together, I would say that would be a killer portrait. And I'd love to actually just get some leaders in the world, just compelling leaders. But I have to think about the answer of that one. If I had to pick one, maybe by the outro, I might think of it. But I think it's a tough one because my mind is leaning more towards someone very compelling and interesting rather than just the pretty people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, honestly, that answer is so beautiful that you'd rather photograph someone and create an impact than someone that gets photographed 16 times a week.
Yeah.
I think it's a very beautiful answer. So,
Thank you.
okay, guys. So if you're having any difficulties with anything, please email support@jerrygionis.com. You will receive an email today with the link to get your free the portrait guide. And with that, all that's left to do is to thank Mr. Gionis and Melissa for being here, giving up a few hours of their day today to educate fools like me. I'm not calling you fools. I'm a fool. And for giving us such a delicious amount of information in such a short amount of time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And congratulations to those that took advantage of this offer today. I really hope you enjoyed the Portrait Photography Complete Bundle.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your time, because that's the most valuable thing that you have. And remember, you don't have to be the best. All you have to do is be better than last week. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.